Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the MinnMax Show podcast. This is a place about games, friends, getting better. My name is Ben Hansen. Thank you for being here. I'm joined by one Sarah Podorski.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome. We have one Jacob Geller.
Ninja Gaiden back in black.
And we're joined by Alana Pierce.
Hi.
Welcome. You're old hat at this point, Alana. I mean, it feels like you've been here 1,000 years.
You know who I am.
It is nice to see the comments that pop up, and it's like, it feels like Alana's been podcasting with these people for a long time, which is, I think, the best.
You've all made me very comfortable. I appreciate it.
Oh, good. Good to hear. This is an exciting episode, everybody. We are here live on YouTube, the rare live treat, and what we're doing is we're talking about the Xbox Developer Direct, all the highlights, all the reveals, all the news, all the games, because it was a pretty damn good show, so we're going to be unpacking all that fun stuff. Jacob, even though it's not out until technically the 31st, do you want to talk about your time with Citizen Sleeper 2?
I have been dying to talk about my time with Citizen Sleeper 2.
Great, let's talk about it. And then back after the show, we have some great questions that people submitted over there on Patreon. We'll take it. Sarah chat's lighting up saying, Sarah's leaf, talk about the leaf on her head. What's with the leaf?
It's a little sprout. It's
That's
my
very
sister.
cute.
It's good.
My sister crocheted it for me for Christmas.
Well, that's
so
awesome.
Yeah, I know. So now I have a little sprout on my head.
Like, with the
Whoa.
intention of, like, wear this when you're streaming, please, and think of me.
I mean, yeah, I think it's just super cute. I love like headphone accessories, as you can see. I feel like I don't know. I know. I think everyone needs to decorate their headphones.
Yeah, you're right. Jacob, we're so boring with our Astro A50X.
Mine are Beats Minecraft headphones, so I
Hell
don't think
yeah.
that
That's about as cool as you can get.
Yeah, I think you're completely set there. Hey, oh, by the way, if you tuned in and are craving some discussions about Assassin's Creed Shadows, we're going to be talking about that more next week because Leo, I know we talked about it a little bit last week, talking about the state of Ubisoft, but this week actually Kyle and Leo got to play it. But Leo's out this week, so next week on the podcast we're going to be sharing their full thoughts. But based on the preview embargo lifting, seems like people are kind of pretty positive on it overall, so I'm curious to hear what those two think. But Xbox Developer Direct. This whole thing kicked off today as of the time of this recording. This format's funky. It feels like people are getting used to it, but it's kind of just extended deep dives into a handful of games, just 4 games here, but like, it's so good. Like, they choose the games so well, and I feel like they're informative, they're personal enough, the developers all feel comfortable in these little videos. I feel like for people craving just something instead of just flashy trailer after flashy trailer, like, this format is perfect.
Yeah,
And
and
I think
after
Developer
like
Direct is the perfect name for it, right? Like,
Yep.
it is literally, you're in their offices, they do that every time, you see some of what they look like, you see a big chunk of the team, and you actually see the people who are working on the things talking about them directly, rather than, as much as we love him, Phil Spencer in a blazer. So
Yes.
I feel like the name is perfect. You are directly getting information from the devs, and I'm a big fan of the format. I think they do a really good job.
Yeah, I think it's
I
great.
mean, and the last like big event was the Game Awards, which is just kind of like a war of attrition of trailers, where it's like you start and you're like, I'm gonna care about and remember all of these, and then like 3 hours in, you're like, someone poured their heart and soul into this, and I can't remember because I've just
But did you
watched
see what
100
coming
other
too?
commercials.
Yeah.
Right. There's something inspired by From Software. I can't remember which sword was which, all that fun stuff. But yeah, so the games that they showed off here, Doom the Dark Ages, which we knew going in. South of Midnight, we knew going in. Not that they're not exciting. And then, of course, there's Expedition 33, that RPG, which had some questions around it, but it's exciting here. And then they kicked it off. It's so cool to get the big mystery one out of the way, where they kicked it off with Team Ninja getting out there, talking about, hey, we're making something new, and we've partnered with Platinum, and we're actually making Ninja Gaiden 4, which is confusing and wild on a couple of different fronts. But one of them is like, you know, people are trying to guess what the 4th game was going to be. I think it was on the Bombcast. They were talking about, is it Ninja Gaiden? It's like, well, they wouldn't do that because they just announced that Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, that 2D game from the Blasphemous developers that looks so cool. And that was just at the Game Awards they announced that. But you would think that was kind of the trial balloon to see, like, does anybody still care about Ninja Gaiden? But instead, no, they are going all in and making this huge, big budget thing and partnering with the developers behind Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, the most relevant game possible for where they're
That's
going
right.
with Ninja Gaiden 4. I mean, when it started, I mean, you and Alana were both like, this is very Revengeance here.
Yeah.
I
There's
love Platinum. Like, I have many questions, but they're all positive.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And
go
I
ahead, Jake.
think, yeah, there. I mean, it's like defining what makes it look Revengeance-y versus any of the other Platinum Sword games gets pretty nitty-gritty, but like there were a lot of kind of big hit-stoppy finishing moves they were showing off. There was a lot of acrobatics, running on walls, sliding down things, which is like, big part of the Revengeance set pieces.
Yeah, it was 70% Sonic the Hedgehog, which is what got Sarah interested in the Ninja Gaiden franchise.
And it looked like the cyber ninja like sheath that the guy had looks like the coolest thing ever in Revengeance, which is one of the guys has a sheath that's also a gun, and so he pulls the trigger and it shoots his sword out at the speed of a bullet. So if it has anything near as cool as that, I'm all in on this thing.
Yeah, it's hard to differentiate the two because, again, the thing that I think Platinum is best at, while I think they are good at many things, is specifically timing. It's one of my favorite GDC talks ever was Platinum talking about the combat in Nier Automata and a bunch of other things, but they were talking about like how long it took them to refine every single frame in terms of like how long after you press a button do we want to make it so that there is actually a collision. And they're like, we refined it to like 0. whatever seconds. And they're so specific about the exact timing. And I feel like that's like all through Bayonetta. You can see that as well. It's not that Ninja Gaiden wasn't already that, but I feel like Ninja Gaiden can have like a tiny bit more finesse in its combat. But I'm just really interested to see like what Platinum has done on it, because basically no matter what the options are, I'm excited. In agreement that it could be Revengeance or any other Platinum game and we wouldn't know, but it also doesn't not look like Ninja Gaiden. Like, I'm so down for the partnership while also not seeing where it is, which probably means they did a good job. It's super cohesive.
Yeah, it is funny to think about like the big history of Platinum here, where it's like more and more enthusiasm. Everybody loves him. Okay, couple dings along the way. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game wasn't great. Yada yada yada. What was it? The Avatar game wasn't great. Legend of Korra game. But then it's like,
look, they've got a lot of dings if you want to start actually running down their, like, they have games that people love, and then they have a lot of games that people have forgotten about because they are not that good.
Yeah.
But the licensed ones don't count, okay? Like, I know this is crazy, like, they do count from a consumer's perspective, but from, like, a dev studio portfolio perspective, I feel like they don't, because the licensed games are games that you make when you're trying to get funding for the game you really want to make.
Right.
So it's like, those are always going to be there because somebody paid them to so that they could make a game like Nier. You know what I mean? I feel like I don't count them as a blip. Not that Platinum doesn't have blips. Anyway, again, Babylon's Fall was a colossal failure and a dumb idea. Like, I don't even know why they tried to do that unless it was maybe like a mandate from a publisher. I really don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
It was a confusing one. No, you're right,
the things they do well, I still think they do better than almost anybody else.
Yeah, I remember visiting High Moon when they were making the Transformers Fall of Cybertron game, and that was their take, is like, look, we're also making the Transformers Dark of the Moon movie tie-in game. But like, I remember talking to the studio head, he's like, do you think we're gonna get dinged for it? If we don't push it that hard, like, we just need the money, we need to make this happen so we can make the cool original Transformers game with Transformers Fall of Cybertron.
There are game studios that are beloved, that like indie studios that you know and love, who have made meta quest games that they didn't market, so nobody knows they made them, but they got paid a bunch of money to do it, that then feeds into their next thing. Like, it's actually pretty common. Like Rocket League, the game they made before making that, Psyonix, was also a tie-in game that nobody talks about. I don't know what it was, but that's basically like, you make the IP game and you make it, the best you can while saving as much money as possible so you can make the cool thing you want to make.
Yeah, but
it also feels like Platinum is kind of best when they have a collaborator that's not in Platinum. Like, some of their best games are like Nier, which is, like Yoko Taro is not part of that studio. Revengeance, which they obviously took over from like Kojima and Konami. And so Ninja Gaiden being on that, it just seems like they maybe get a little lost in their own sauce when it's just them, and it's like, I love Bayonetta, but like someone needed to tell them things about Bayonetta 3 because that game was not great. And so it's just like, I think they are actually, like, they're so good at specific things that I'm excited for them to have maybe a little more disciplined studio to work with who can kind of like rein them in and build the game around their wonderful systems.
Yeah, it's just funny to think of like, Kamiya leaving early last year, I forget exactly when that was. And it was kind of like, okay, what is Platinum going to be like now? And his parting messages was just kind of like, I don't agree with the type of games Platinum's making anymore. I think they kind of lost their way. And then to come out with a game that everyone's like, this looks like exactly what we want Platinum to be making is a big cyber ninja awesome affair here from the looks of Ninja Gaiden 4 so far.
And it's not just Kamiya. They've lost a lot of people. Like, because Kamiya's kind of recruiting people, because it's like the director of Metal Gear Rising, Kenji Sato, also left. The Astral Chain director has left. The Anarchy Reigns director has left. The Bayonetta Origins director has left.
Not Origins.
They are losing people, but they've still got this going on.
Yeah. It's also just, I feel like we don't talk about enough how crazy it is that Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is a good game. like how weird is, like, how statistically unlikely is that like some studio that, like, at the time not that many people were that familiar with took over Metal Gear Solid and made something very distinct and very unique, and it's awesome. Like, that's so unlikely that game would be good, and it rules. And
it's like the big reboot that happened too. It's like, okay, it's kind of just feel like it was being handed off to a different studio and they can kind of crank something out. But also I feel like it had its defenders out of the gate, but definitely it has a groundswell. I feel like, Jacob Geller, I know you've been screaming about it for so long, you definitely helped, but it does feel like more and more people in retrospect are like, wait, that thing was so awesome. And also it's crazy that it doesn't get dinged for being a Metal Gear game where the story, it's absurd and memorable for Senator Armstrong and all that stuff, but that they made something. I really remember. It's wild. But like after Metal Gear Solid 4, the fact that it doesn't really move any story beats forward in a meaningful way. Like the big question is like, where is Solid Snake? And it's like, we don't really touch on it. You think that'd be like #1 ding for that game, but the rest of the game is so cool.
I think they smartly avoided it. Yeah. Because it's just kind of like, well, we don't want any real Metal Gear story that's not like written by Kojima. So this one is just like, I don't know, Jack's ready to let it rip again, and that's most of the story.
Jacob, I played the game, like that game when it came out. This is totally like off track now, and loved it. But all I really remember is the president. As in the final boss fight, and
Senator.
Senator. And like maybe fighting a giant robot dog at some point.
Blade
what is
Wolf,
the story of
who
that
becomes
game?
Your friend? I mean, it's just like Raiden's doing like mercenary work, and then
hot girl stuff.
He decides, it's like, oh, he has to use his blade for justice or whatever. But the real story of the game is Metal Gear Ray hits you with a sword the size of a skyscraper, and then you chuck it over your shoulder and run up with the sword. Like, that's the story of the game.
That's all you really need.
Yeah, I dare you to squeeze some little narrative dissonance into that. I dare you. So you're a big Ninja Gaiden fan, like playing the originals and stuff?
Yeah, I think I've played every single one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan. Ayane is my favorite female video game character. And that is maybe part of the reason that I got so into them. I don't really remember. Yeah, I mean, in terms of like what I would want from a new Ninja Gaiden, I hadn't even thought about it. I'm very much one of those people who's like, give me new IP every day of the week rather than more of the same thing. But then seeing that, I was very, very excited about it. I do think it looks distinctly different. There is a lot less... Like, a lot of the previous Ninja Gaiden games are very much about being in an office building, and so this seems to have a lot more verticality. Like, they have outside segments, but there's a lot of, like, running through houses in Japan, or, like, maybe, like, a little bathhouse area, like, it's very, very common. There are big halls, like, where you fight the T-Rex that I kept mentioning on the stream, but every part of this gameplay that we're looking at looks super, super vertical.
Yeah.
Far more than I recall in previous Ninja Gaiden games.
Right. And you said your calling card was you beat Ninja Gaiden Black on the hardest difficulty?
Yes, I put that on my resume when I applied to work at IGN.
Do you think
to be clear, I did apply 7 separate jobs before I even got an interview there. And the one that I got the interview for was the one that I had that on. So I don't know if it helped.
Interesting.
Put a little achievement. I put the screenshot of it on there and said, yeah, I beat the original Ninja Gaiden on the hardest difficulty game, which is, they are really, really hard games. And obviously that's definitely a thing that I would hope that they still maintain the difficulty. They are tough. A lot of boss fight strategy type stuff in a way that, I think they really change depending on the environment too. Like, you really have to use your environment to your advantage in a lot of those boss fights, which, again, especially with all of the wall running, flippy stuff, I'm wondering if there'll be a lot more verticality to those as well.
Yeah. I mean, I am curious. Maybe, I don't know. I give too much credit to the From Software Games fan base on this front, Sarah. Not for the games themselves. I won't diminish them. But that idea of like the games that used to be seen as the hardest freaking games in the world. I think of like, you know, for me in high school, Ninja Gaiden Black was always like, well, that's an impossible game. That game is so ridiculously hard. And I don't know why I feel like in a post-From world, if we all went back to Ninja Gaiden Black, it'd be a cakewalk. Is that naive and stupid?
You are so wrong.
Okay.
I also think so, because I think that FromSoft games are better about, you can learn the mechanics of a boss fight, and that's the challenge, right? Is watching and learning a moveset, and like that's the challenge, really. You can get through a boss fight in a FromSoft game if you pay attention. Ninja Gaiden's just mean.
It's like, yeah, Ninja From is functionally about like planning and learning, and Ninja Gaiden is like execution. It's like you can know exactly what this guy's gonna do, but like you need to be able to hit the buttons fast enough. And like From games generally are not hit the buttons fast enough games. They're just kind of like recognize a wind up.
Right.
Yeah, if anything, it's like, you hit it too fast, slow down, idiot.
Yeah. But as Jacob pointed out in our reaction stream, which you can watch on YouTube if you want to see all this stuff, they then had the oddest announcement ever, which was a sequel to a different version of a game released 20 years ago. That's out now, Jacob. What are we talking about?
I don't know what order it's in. Ninja Gaiden Black 2, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black.
You can't say that. It's Black 2, I do believe.
Black 2.
Yeah. This is, what an odd thing. And so
Yeah.
it's out now, which is wild. And then also, I mean, Ninja Gaiden 2, the reputation was good. I know 3 kind of crapped the bed and people weren't a fan of it, but 2 is beloved, or like, what's the reputation for 2? I'm trying to get a sense of it.
Yeah, that's what I remember it being.
Okay.
Super well liked, well appreciated. Yeah, I think like 1 is the GOAT just in terms of what it did when it came out, but I think 2 has a fairly good reputation.
Okay.
It feels like this is so long ago. Like when it said that was a remaster of a game that came out in 2008, I think it said.
Yeah.
Feels like it's been way longer since we had a Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I guess just the Wii U Ninja Gaiden 3 didn't exactly count in a big way, but yeah, so that thing's out now. I'm curious what it's going to be like going back to Ninja Gaiden 2 for a lot of folks here with the huge remaster, but it looks awesome, and it's like remade in Unreal Engine, and so yeah, it's seeming pretty good. Jacob, Ninja Gaiden 4 though, anything you want? You just want wild ninja action, you'll be set?
Yeah, I was positive on almost everything that they showed on the trailer. We were complimenting the lack of loot. I think is exciting, and honestly, a thing that Team Ninja often has a problem with is shoving loot into their very well-made combat systems.
Just Neo.
So I am just fully positive on it. I can't wait.
Yeah. So what had me really intrigued is that idea of them talking about like the environment's going to be changing all the time. The buildings are collapsing around you. The world is dynamic in that way. And that probably is going to tie into the verticality that Alana was talking about.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to be. I just think that means that the levels are going to have cool setups. So like I don't think it's going to be that dynamic, because I imagine this is just going to be a game with linear levels, and I wouldn't really want it to be anything else.
Right.
But we'll see.
And are we trading off between the multiple characters now? Because we have Ryu coming back, and then Yakumo is the other character jumping in here.
That was always the way they did it, was that you would play a different character on occasional levels. Like it would almost be like a fun, like reading a book, like you turn a page in the next chapter, suddenly you have a different perspective. It's kind of like that. So it's usually that it was Ryu was there most of the time, but then you would get to a new chapter and you would be playing as someone else.
Okay, gotcha. But yeah, wild announcement. The fact that this was kept secret. Like there was that tease that it's like, oh, there's going to be some old Japanese series that's coming back. So yeah, my mind was reeling. I was like, I think it's going to be Phantasy Star. I think they're going to make a single player Phantasy Star RPG that's going to be so cool. I did not expect Ninja Gaiden 4 to come out of this thing. But not only that, they say fall 2025 for Ninja Gaiden 4 for when this thing is coming out. And God, when is the release date for that Rage-bound Ninja Gaiden, I wonder?
Yeah, I don't remember what that... You mentioned that on the stream. What is that?
That is... So the developers of Blasphemous, kind of the Metroidvania, they announced this thing. And this is coming summer 2025. But it looks awesome. I don't think...
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a Metroidvania.
It's like a 2D... side scroller beat 'em up type.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like retro 2D side scrollers or beat 'em ups specifically have had like a real resurgence recently.
Yeah, a bit of a
The
revengeance.
what is it? The Power Rangers game as well.
Right,
Because,
Rita's Rewind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Streets of Rage 4, like they have been doing surprisingly well. But yeah, I'm curious to see how Ragebound is going to be received, and it's just fun to see a property like this getting leaned into this hard. Like for them to be like, this is the year of the ninja. For everybody screaming about Ninja Gaiden for the last decade, like we are giving it our all this 1 year. If you don't show up this 1 year, Ninja Gaiden's gone forever. This is the ultimate test for a beloved franchise. So I'm curious to see how it does. And then, Sarah, am I fair to say that the biggest takeaway for you from the Xbox stream was the big RPG, Clair Obscur, Expedition 33?
I really, really liked that one.
Yeah.
I am tentatively super looking forward to it. I love their like fresh take on sort of like the JRPG formula, where the formula right now is like, what did they say? The painter paints a number on this mysterious column that appeared out of nowhere. And if your age is above the number that they paint, you die. Everyone just dies.
Perfect.
Which I feel like is such a fresh take on like JRPG stuff. And then, it's not so much like, oh, the great calamity, like it's actively happening at the same time. And it's going to cause, I think, a lot of stress. And the locations. I just want to say for this Xbox thing, all of the locations were incredible. Like South of Midnight, Doom, Expedition 33, Ninja Gaiden, the locations were amazing. And I feel like some games, I feel like it's been a while since I've seen like a truly fantasy location. But I feel like Expedition 33 like really leans into it.
Yeah, and it's funny too with the overall presentation to think of like, Doom's in hell, we got that, but it's medieval hell. But then that idea of like, okay, it's a fantasy take on the Deep South for South of Midnight, and then Expedition 33 is a fantasy take on 19th century France with like a twisted version of the Eiffel Tower that looks like something out of World of Goo. Like it just looks awesome. But like, yeah, put fantasy spins on these locations we kind of know. Why the hell not?
Yeah, it is worth pointing out. I think that Lies of P is set in the same time period.
Oh, funny.
In a fantasy version of France. And so there are like, it is actually similar looking architecturally, but like this is way more fantastical. And it's like Lies of P was a cool looking game, but it didn't have like the Eiffel Tower bent over, like, it was melting or something.
Yeah, the concept art for this game is gorgeous. And I do feel like you can see it in all of these trailers that I felt this way for a little while. The graphical leaps that we're seeing right now, maybe less so on faces outside of particular engines, like the Decima engine is obviously incredible. We're seeing more density in environments in video games right now, and I wonder if that is like the current graphics push, is we are getting much bigger, more dense environments. I feel like that's a leap that we're maybe not paying as much attention to because everyone's always so focused on the way faces look.
Right.
But I feel like we're getting very lush environments more and more and more often. Like I remember when I first booted up Horizon Forbidden West, I was like, how is this dense and that it's all moving and it all looks so beautiful? And I feel like that's kind of where we're able to actually make some like technological advances in development now, is like much more in environment art than it is necessarily in faces or physics.
Yeah.
It reminds me of all those like tech showcases they were doing where they would be like, look at this leaf. Now we can put 1 million of these leaves. And I was like, okay, whatever, like it's a jungle. But now we're actually seeing like the fruits of like the jungle with several blades of
Those leaves
grass.
are pretty sick.
Yeah, like when you turn it into like really sick, like the undersea coral environment and all that stuff, you're like, okay, I get it now. I didn't get it with the leaf, but I get it now.
Yeah, what if these are fantasy twisted leaves in a city you thought you knew? Suddenly it's completely different. But yeah, I'm with you, Sarah. We're like that premise, it's like, well, that's just good immediate drama of if you have a 32-year-old protagonist or whatever the hell, like, oh, I'm worried about what's going to happen here. But also it seems, they talk about their inspirations here and how they love their old RPGs. It's giving me a lot of Final Fantasy X vibes. Like even in combat, it kind of has the order of the moves like Final Fantasy X. But then and it's all turn-based. If you haven't seen Expedition 33, it looks cool. But also Final Fantasy X, just for that kind of larger theme of just kind of sadness of like, all right, a lot of people are dying here, and you think you're marching to your death, but can we actually break this system? Can we fight back against the evil paintress who has painted the number 33 for the last time? Yeah.
I'm also wondering if there's I've not seen it, but like the leftovers thing going on, where this just gets painted one day, and so randomly everybody's parents die. Like just one day, they all just get wiped out.
Yep.
And there's like what happens to society when everyone over 33 dies. Like maybe that's something they'll play into as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be interesting if every character is mourning them. Are they just going to have like a cross dissolve of every character crying over their parents? Just be like, all right, let's assume.
And then cross dissolve to Titus laughing.
The way it should be. Exactly. But yeah, it seems super cool. And so this thing is coming out April 24th, which is shockingly soon. Like I thought this looked cool last time they showed it, but I'm like, we'll see when it actually releases. But April is just around the corner. I mean, that's when the next Nintendo Switch 2 info's coming. I mean, this thing is right around the damn corner. Yeah, the combat, Sarah, anything pop for you with the combat in this game?
I like that it's sort of like the turn-based combat with sort of, the Final Fantasy-esque moves. The one thing that like caused me pause was like the quick time event mix in with it, where it's like, how is it actually turn-based, or is it turn-based with a timer? It looks like it was like very reactionary, like you pick your move, and then if you like hit the button at a certain time, you can like do more damage, and then they were like you can also dodge and parry. So it'll be interesting to like actually try it out and see if it feels good.
Yeah, it seems like they're saying like, oh, we're accounting for all the turn-based people and then people who want a little more action there. You kind of pick and choose the way you want to play it. And if it is kind of just Mario and Luigi, like button press timing, like I think that's probably the sweet spot.
That's how the new Yakuzas work. Is like pretty much. It seems like most modern turn-based games are like, but you're gonna press triangle at a certain time and then you'll do more damage, and it's just, I don't know, a way to keep
and I
you
don't
more
like
engaged.
it. But anyways, we'll see how this one feels.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about like Microsoft nailing the messaging here and the devs nailing the messaging and the design of the game, but like an example of that is in this when they had the big moment of like, what we missed in old RPGs. World maps, and they treat it like it's a big mic drop. It's like, yes, give us a huge world map with a little character. This is what we want every time that pops up in a game, even a game that we'll probably talk about next week. But even like the map in Dynasty Warriors Origins makes me so happy. Like, let me just walk around a world. Is it too much to ask? Make the perspective all wonky? I don't care. But not only that, but there's the world map in Expedition 33, and then at the same time there's a personified inflatable blimp looking guy that's flying you around or something.
Yeah, the little Baymax guy.
My highlight of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Whoever that inflatable blimp man with his cute little pants is. I don't know who he is, but I love him. I would die for him already.
Yep. All right.
I hope he's only 2.
And then they have like the wacky party member that's like the one that's like not human, just like a wacky guy.
Yeah. Imagine if Kamari had like a sense of humor in Final Fantasy X, is kind of like the vibes that guy's giving off. Yeah.
It's crazy to think how we strayed from that formula, but you don't realize it until someone puts it in front of you and like points everything out, and you're like, oh yeah, no, I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, even Metaphor, it has its animal characters, right? But it still just feels like just different for how weird looking some of these creatures are, I guess.
Well, and also the story is a little bit different in Metaphor, right? Like this feels like quintessential like RPG, but like the Catholic Church isn't evil, but maybe they are in this too. I don't know. Like we'll see how things turn out.
Yeah. And the big thing from this presentation is the developers apparently are making this game in a French manner, which is...
They had the best office.
Takeaway.
Out of the office competition for the developer thing.
If you had to work for one of these companies,
Copy.
choose the manor.
The manor.
Yeah.
I
will say one thing that I'm not a fan of with this particular game, and I think it's maybe also partly the way they showed it in this footage, is the menus just look so overwhelming.
It's a lot.
It was
and
a
I
little
think
scary.
that,
That's kind of a jump
and
scare.
like you look at it and you go, whoa, that's a lot. And it's not like you don't get used to that over time. Obviously, everyone who's playing Path of Exile 2 right now knows what the largest skill tree on planet Earth looks like and how you can get used to it. But I almost wish they wouldn't show those things in these reveals. Like, I don't know if it's like a, look how customizable it is, but I just go, oh god.
And is that
Too
like
many
a late
options.
game? Like what it'll look like late
Right.
game? Or like from the get-go, is that all going to be available? So hopefully that's more late game and it's more of a slow introduction.
Yeah.
This game looks awesome.
It really does.
Yeah.
Does it give you pause at all, Alana? Does it freak you out when they're like, hey, we are a new team. We gathered 30 of our buddies and we're making it together. Like, a part of me wishes there was a little more of a clear pedigree so I could have confidence in this team. It's awesome. I'm glad it's something new and
You don't
a
believe
breath
in the
of fresh
power
air.
of friendship, Ben?
No, not for a game this ambitious for a first-time team.
I think they said that they're rallying behind like a very distinct concept. Like they had the vision, and I do feel like if they had it and it was good, and as long as they stick to it, I have more faith than from a studio that has pedigree. But you can tell that the vision was sort of like fought and distilled, and then you just get a bunch of like random.
Yeah, you don't
I
have
went
the
to Final
game
Fantasy VII,
director
but
who
then you
played
just get a
Breath
bunch of
the
random
Wild.
stuff.
We
Yeah.
need to change everything.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer on this game. It's just if I had to raise one little flag of concern.
Every studio has to start somewhere.
I agree, but then also it's like...
also just look at Black Myth Wukong. Like that, they had previously only made mobile games and then came
Yeah.
out and made something that is huge and incredible and like shockingly good quality for effectively the studio's first game. Like I know it's not, they had worked on mobile games, but you know what I mean?
Lies of P as well.
Yeah, true.
Yep.
So no, it doesn't give me pause in any way. Look, the toughest thing about making video games and the thing that takes the longest about making video games is coming up with the idea. Like that is, it sounds dumb, but literally the hardest thing is someone coming up with the idea and how to execute it. If they make a game, which is what it looks like, that's taking inspiration from a bunch of other JRPGs, that actually is super helpful. Like,
Yeah.
once one game studio has figured out how to do something and then everyone else is like, oh, we can do that. Like, obviously you iterate on top of each other and everything, but it's just, if they're making something where they're like, our inspiration and our goal here and our direction is basically to take all of the things that we love about old JRPGs and put them in this world that we came up with, that's a perfect path to make something high quality for a brand new team. Like, they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. That's the thing that like really, really messes people up.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, I hear all that. I also worry about like publisher, Kepler Interactive. Like, what is the budget on this game? You know, like it's still coming to PlayStation. I don't know from this level of partnership, Alana, maybe you have more insight like on how much Microsoft would be helping out with the funding, or is just promotional boost. They both get to look like heroes, but it's not like a Microsoft exclusive. And so Kepler is publishing this, and they published like Pacific Drive and Chia and Sifu, which are awesome games. I just don't know if it's going to be a matter of a budget the size of Utah coming into this game. But again, I'm not trying to be a downer. I think this game looks cool.
Sifu rules. This
I
is
know,
probably
look.
one of my favorite games ever.
They're great, no doubt about it. Okay, last thing, even though I think this game looks cool, I want to be very clear. Look, it's not too late to change the name. Clair Obscur Expedition 33. If this game
I
was
actually
just...
don't hate the name.
Really?
It reminds me of like 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or like all of those like Arctic explorations where you go out and everybody dies.
I mean, it
I
seems
don't know.
like
I like it.
Yeah.
we've all just decided to say Expedition 33, and that's fine. In the same way that I'm not saying Refantasio. So it's like as long as we just leave off that Clair Obscur part.
Yeah.
Let's just call it 33. That works for me.
Right.
We're fine with that. The only thing about this game that I don't know that I love, look, it's always a challenge when you try to give me a big open world RPG, because I feel like that there are a lot of those and they take a long time. They're especially like a brand new one that is always like I feel like I have to be extra sold on that. The combat I think looks incredibly stylish, but that doesn't always mean that it feels good. That's the only thing that always gets me about like a turn-based game like this is like, does it look incredibly stylish? Yes, they've clearly been inspired by Atlas in terms of like the way the design is, which is like beautiful, perfect studio to be inspired by, like such a gorgeous UI. But what does it feel like to play? And I just don't know. Like it's one of those ones where I'd want to try a demo or something like that. I guess it's coming to Game Pass, so who cares? But
Yeah.
like I'd want to. It seems silly. I would just want to feel it first.
Yep, I hear you. That definitely comes into play with the game we're coming up to talk about next. But before we get there, you know what I like to feel in my life, Jacob Geller?
Please tell me.
I'll tell you, sir. Delicious food going down my gullet as I eat food from HelloFresh, everybody. With HelloFresh, you get
Ever eaten food before? That sounds like someone who had never eaten food.
Okay,
That's
from
why he
sell
films.
something.
That's why he films everyone else eating. He forgets how to do it sometimes.
I need to refer to the footage of what is their gullet doing as they're swallowing this. HelloFresh, everybody. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking fun, easy, and affordable. And that is why it is America's #1 meal kit. Nothing better than a big box of HelloFresh showing up at your front door, because it's so sweet just that they all come in their little bags. It's not a matter of like scattering the ingredients to your entire fridge, not knowing what's where. It's like, hey, you want to make this tonight? Everything is in this bag, ready to go, except for the meat. But you can do that math, right? It's just so easy and lovely. And we just had their cheesy smashed burgers, as they put it in the recipe name. And it's genuinely great. Like, if I had this burger at a restaurant that HelloFresh provides, this would be like one of the best burgers in the city, Sarah. We're not talking like parlor burger level, but like damn good smashed cheeseburger from HelloFresh. So they want you to know that, hey, if you're tired of figuring out what's for dinner every single night, just get HelloFresh. It's got 50 wholesome and hassle-free meals to choose from, so you can save valuable time and fewer trips to the grocery store, and it's more affordable than the grocery store as well. So you can get up to 10 free meals and a free high protein item for life at HelloFresh.com/MinnMax10FM. 1 item per box with active subscription. That is free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. But again, that is up to 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/MinnMax10FM. There's a link below if you want to check that out. You know what's good in the South, you guys? Food and Midnights. There is a game from Compulsion Games coming out called South of Midnight. And Alana, yeah, we talked about this in the reaction stream as well, but it's one that seems very cool, but especially as they're showing more of the combat, it's like, I just need to get a feel for this. I need to know how snappy this combat is for this thing. Yeah, because South of Midnight. This is the one that is in the Deep South, a fantastical tale of Hazel getting whisked away. And they've been showing more and more of this, and every time they show it, it's like, wait, this is just like a stylish action game? Is that what's going on here? Does anybody
I think it's an action adventure. It is a weird one in that it's one of those games where every time I see it, I think the first time I saw it was the cinematic trailer where she like has a conversation with a giant frog or something. That was like, whoa, what is this? Yeah. And it like just looks so unique. And again, as I said on the stream, Compulsion's 2 for 2 here with making very, very, very unique things. And they're 2 things that they have made, obviously this and We Happy Few, also look very different. You love to see it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But now every time I see gameplay, I don't know if this is just me, I go, okay, I get it. It's one of those ones where I don't think I need to see more. I just need to play it at this point. Like I'm not seeing something that's making me go, oh, and also that? I kind of understand, I think.
It gave me, and also that with this presentation, though, like starting in the real world, in like with an argument with your mom in the kitchen, is like, oh, I did not think this was going to be this type of game, and then a hurricane hits.
Also, same was maybe the only part that I was like, oh, you gave me some extra context there. That's interesting. Oh, I see. The Last of Us.
I guess
I'm gonna give her a watch.
Yeah, she gets whisked away in the house, and so it does. I do wonder if they're all talking about like the impact of the hurricane and how everything's changed since the hurricane. Like, it's going to be kind of a weird fusion of a hurricane story and a Wizard of Oz element where it's a little more fantastical and she's encountering all these mythical beings and stuff. Is that the vibe, Sarah? Am I picking up correctly on South of Midnight?
I think the thing that I like the most is when they were explaining like the weaving and like the textile aspect of the game, because textiles and stuff and weaving is like considered like very feminine historically. So I think it's really cool that they're pulling on it as like an art style this way, because it's not a respected art style. So it's really cool to see like some of the monsters where like you could see like the fabrics and the textures and they were sewn together, and she uses her, I believe it's a spool, but it probably has a more technical term. She uses that to like collect things. After you defeat an enemy, you like, I don't know, purify it, and then you get some of the threads from it that looks like it's revealing some kind of historical past of the area.
Right. Yeah, and then even tied to that, like they have the big areas where there's going to be a big boss that's been transformed by tragedy, which feels very Metal Gear in some ways, right? Like learn the backstory of this boss, but then just to be a reductionist and compare it to every other game, but like you're going to be finding fragments of those big bosses' memories that are going to kind of fill you in on the tragedy. It's like, okay, so it's like the
Completely missed
Psychonauts.
that. Wait,
yeah.
so you're then playing through the history of the boss?
I think it's like, think of the Figments and Psychonauts, like going around like collecting these different elements that then are filling in the backstory of this big creature that's been transformed into this beast from a human or some other animal or something.
I was actually kind of thinking of Psychonauts during this, just in the kind of like, I think what this game is probably going to be shooting for is like greater than the sum of its parts. You know, that it's like, it's like a decent combat game and like a decent platformer, but like, when you put that within a really interesting like story context and in a unique world, suddenly the like pretty good combat and platforming are elevated by, you know, whatever it is, because it's like none of the mechanics that we've seen have made me go like whoa, but I think it's just like it is interesting enough looking that if it can, you know, like it can buy my support with that rather than with like the parry feels good or something, you know, strictly mechanical.
I'm extremely sold on the characters in this game. Like, I feel like the big weird dudes I'm going to talk to are the thing that I'm super sold on.
Yeah.
But you're right that the wall running, the thing that looks like web slinging, and even the combat do not look overly unique, but it's not like every game can do that anyway. A lot of games look the same, right? Like we were just saying Expedition 33, it looks like Atlasy. But yeah, I think the selling point and the strength, and clearly they've lent into it, is how unique this world is. I don't think there's anything that looks like it. Like, it does look very distinct.
Yeah.
The bosses looked so cool. Like the crocodile alligator thing that you fight looked really cool. The weird spider lady hanging from the ceiling looked so cool. But then when you contrast it with those like basic ads that I assume basic enemies will be encountering in like locations, you're like, that looks bad. But this looks good. So it's like, I wish they would have found more of like a medium between them.
And I wonder if, you know, if the combat's like, it looks serviceable. Like if just kind of that weaving and thread theme is going to be enough to make it seem unique, you know? Like the idea of, okay, what it was showing like the upgrade path, and I had, how did they put it? The strand push and strand pull abilities and stuff. It's like, okay, if it's going to be kind of like a DMC 2013 thing where you're constantly pushing and pulling, but if it's just all weaving themed, like that seems unique enough for me, I guess.
We do also have, this isn't fully confirmed, but I trust Pixel Hot Dish in the chat, who said that there are some additional details that have come out, including that you can turn off the variable frame rate thing in everything except cutscenes, which might be good if it like a very distinctive style, but might make you motion sick. And also, while watching this presentation, I was like, I just wish they would tell us if it was 12 hours long or something. And apparently they have said it is about 12 hours long.
That changes how I feel a lot. 12 hours, bro, I'm so down. Like, I say this in the least disparaging way possible. I swear I'm not like this. I don't know what I think of this game yet, other than I think it's stylishly super cool. I just keep hoping it's not like a Recore, where, like you kind of said, like it has some things that we've seen before that like on their own are sort of good, and the world was really interesting. I got like Jet Force Gemini vibes from Recore. I was really excited about it. And then when it all came together, it was just an okay game. It's not to say, I mean, this is gorgeous, and also it does look very Psychonauts, the little bit that we just had on screen there. It's not to say that I'm not sold, but far more sold when I hear it's 12 hours rather than 30. Clearly, I'm very obsessed with time for my video.
I think a lot of people are in that same camp. Yeah,
I think I'm shorter.
It's we're all rooting for it. It seems cool. It's awesome for Microsoft to
I want
make
this game to be good so badly. So badly. I'm rooting for it.
You know that horrible people are going to come out against it, and so it's like just don't give them anything.
It has to be better than just good, and I'm so nervous about that.
Yeah. There's also some like kind of little nightmare vibes in some of this stuff, which is awesome. Like in some of the interiors here that look all gloomy. I just the boss fights look so sick, dude.
Yeah.
Sarah, you're totally right. It's like it's being held to a higher standard. If this was any other game with all its mechanics, we'd probably be like, it's awesome, but because of this, it has to be like, it has to be perfect.
Yeah, I feel scared for this game on several fronts, and like one of them is just, I think after Microsoft last year, I just don't trust them. Trust them as far as I can throw the Microsoft corporation. And so after they
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Just shutting down Arcane and Tango.
Oh, right.
You know, like after they released...
that thing they did where they fired all those people. Yeah,
right. But after making...
I thought you meant that they were going to, like, meddle in the game, and I was like, I don't think they do that.
No, yeah, it's interesting.
They meddle after the game.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like, I think they just have such... From the outside, who the hell knows what's really going on in there? But from the outside, it seems like there's such a wild disconnect between the team that's greenlighting projects. So like, yeah, come on, team. Follow your passions. Make what you want to make. You want to make Hi-Fi Rush? That rules. Please. And then, oh, what's that? It didn't... apparently sell more Xboxes, and axe comes down on the entire team. And so it's just the people looking at the budgets versus the people greenlighting the games. I just feel like there's such a weird gap there. And so what is their hope for this game? Just that they can have like, hey, look, we need some game every year that Microsoft can hold up as like, this is our push to new IP. Look at us. We're being artsy. Maybe it'll win some awards. But if it comes out and it's a solid 8.25 and it doesn't win awards, what are we doing here? It's a larger conversation.
For sure.
It scares me on behalf of a game that looks this cool and a team that's taken a big swing like this. Like, I just don't have faith in Microsoft supporting something like this if it doesn't do what, based on Hi-Fi Rush, I don't know what the hell it has to do in order to impress everybody, Who knows? But April 8th, 2025, coming out. Damn soon again, everybody.
That's a busy April.
I know. Yeah.
February, March, April, they're all busy.
It's starting to really fill out.
We had a chill January, though.
Now May.
This is our first year in a while that I feel like January's been like kind of chill.
Yeah.
I feel like last year and the year before was really chaotic, and now everyone's like, we'll give you a break, April.
Right. I wonder if it also, people talk about wanting to dodge the nuclear blast of GTA 6. And so I wonder if it's just like, hey, look, we know that's probably coming out second half of the year. So if there's any way we can squeeze this game in the first half of the year, let's try and hit that.
Think that I did not realize, like, people talk about that, obviously. I did not realize until working in game dev, and then people just start telling you things because they're no longer worried that you're going to report on them. Which I guess I technically am doing. But vaguely, just how much everybody cares about that GTA release date. Like, there are studios who are willing to push to next year. They're like, just get us the hell away from Grand Theft Auto, which is like, did I think it was a thing? Yeah, but not by that much. They're not like, just not the same day. They're literally like, I don't even want to be on the same planet as Grand Theft Auto. Like, it's such a juggernaut to everybody. It's really crazy. Though I also wonder if maybe January this year is chill because they don't want to compete with the election. Like,
I was going to say that.
The presidency.
Yeah.
Like,
the inauguration.
The news cycle. Yeah, like, that's what everyone's talking about all the time. Obviously, video games at this point can live and die by social media and the internet. Like, it's a huge marketing tool for them now. I wonder if they're like, well, with the change of presidency and Trump coming in and announcing all these executive orders that's going to happen on this day, maybe we just don't want to be in January. And I kind of wouldn't doubt that for the North American market.
Like, yeah, if a lot of these games could be ready in time, be like, let's just go to February. And that's why February is
also with, like,
packed.
the Switch 2 stuff. Like, you really have to, like, thread the needle in the year 2025 if you want to push anything out there.
Yeah, probably won't be any other, like, big news for the rest of the year. So, like, all of these other games
not.
totally safe in their release dates.
Yeah, it is fun to try and think of Xbox's year for 2025. And, like, clearly Avowed's coming out February 13th. That's coming out really damn soon. And then, Alana, we were talking about in the reaction stream, but, like, what is the end of the year for Microsoft then, do you think?
And can I also ask you guys, like, I like asking people this who like are more on the media side. How are you feeling about the state of Xbox right now, and what do you think they need to do? Like, what is it that you think needs to come out of Xbox in 2025? Or how are you feeling about them in general? Do they need to do anything? Like, what do you feel is the state of that company right now?
Piss poor. Yeah, I mean, there's games I'm really looking forward to, but in terms of if you want to really get in the mud, the console wars, it's done. We're done. Microsoft, you're finished forever. And so but also they're not competing.
They're trying.
Their status is everything is an Xbox. I have played lots of Xbox games on my PC because they all release on a PC. It's like I do think they're competing on like a different battlefield, but they haven't found an identity that helps them there. Where I do still think of Sony as like the people who release the big first-party games, and I don't think of Xbox at all. It's just like they're like a non-actor.
Yeah, it's interesting to think of like, they can try and push that messaging, the big marketing push at the end of the year of everything's an Xbox. You can play Game Pass on your phone, everybody. Like, I don't know how you get that message across. I mean, what could they possibly do? There's not going to be like a tentpole moment of now everybody realizes that. Like, what do you do if the players during the Super Bowl all stop in the middle of one play and decide to boot up Game Pass on their phone? Like, what would you need? What cultural event could happen to make everybody suddenly realize, oh, here's a thing?
I feel like it happens for Game Pass. Like, I remember that first conference where they announced that everything was available on Game Pass, and I made this video where I was just ranting at the camera, being like, why is nobody freaking out about this? That you get to play all of these games, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I feel like it did pick up on that. People did figure out the value of Game Pass and why they should have Game Pass. And I don't think I know any like core gamer, like people who play games a lot, who don't have a Game Pass subscription. So while I don't think that anything as an Xbox thing is taken off yet, I actually don't doubt that it can. Like, once people realize that playing games on your phones actually can work, and that you like can connect to an Xbox controller with the little clip thing and play something just like that. Like, I feel like it's possible. It's just not there yet.
Yeah,
it could happen. It's an interesting one in that I totally agree with you, Jacob, in that I do not think they are in the console wars anymore. These companies doing completely different things. Microsoft is more of a third-party publisher. I mean, it's obviously their own stuff, but the first-party publisher, they got a bunch of third parties that they bought, right? But they're basically a video game publishing house more so than they are a console manufacturer now, from the way that they market everything.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this on the most recent episode of Play Watch Listen, which will be up tomorrow, everybody. That I think a thing that a lot of people on the outside haven't realized yet is that video games aren't competing with each other anymore. They're competing with Twitter. Like, entertainment has such a surplus right now that when you are talking about like what video game companies are competing with each other, is way too tunnel vision. They are competing with your Twitter feed and your Instagram feed and your TikTok feed for your time. Like, they are in a war for the amount of time you spend on stuff. There was an era where people would sit down and they would play a game for 30 minutes, where they are now sitting down and they are picking up their phone and looking at social media. Like, we are losing game time because people are spending so much time on social media. You know what chronically online gamers look like. There's tons of them tweeting all day and not playing anything. Like, it's definitely a huge thing. And I think that the Play It Anywhere, especially if they can do some of the YouTube integration that I remember, oh my god, I'm forgetting the name of it.
Stadia?
The Google,
Stadia.
The Stadia we're planning on doing. Like, I feel like there's a world where they are making it so that you are on your social media and you can click something and immediately boot up a video game. Like, they are trying to compete with those apps. It's just, it's such an interesting landscape that they're in right now that I get why they're doing what they're doing. I'm also in agreement that it's not currently working, but I feel like everybody you ask has such a different opinion on what that company is doing right now, what they should be doing to win you over, and it's like, who knows?
And the other competition is just like, we know that most people, when they play games, are playing games that are like 3 years old or more.
Right.
That like most games being played, period, are not new games. And so it is, it's why everyone is throwing games into the live service fire, because it's like, well, they're not playing new games, so we just need a game that they'll play forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Service thing's a really interesting one too, because it's like, the reason that's so appealing to publishers is, I think I spoke about this last episode, is because it's like infinite. Like, you can monetize a player's time for 1,000 hours rather than just get $60 for hour money. You can make so much more money off of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are now too many of them. So it's an Ouroboros. They're just eating their own tails on live service games. They're like, let's make a live service game that everybody will play and keep them in there. But then they make 10. We can't play all of them.
Yeah.
You can't give me Helldivers and Concord. It's just not going to work. Like, everyone's going to play Helldivers. And someone in the chat just said that it's not like PlayStation's in a great position right now either. And that's also true. Like, obviously, they've just canceled a whole bunch of stuff. So it's like the industry in general, as we know, is kind of in a disaster right now. But speaking of Xbox specifically, it's just, it was like, what do people want from them? And what would they have to do to cheer you up?
I think, they are basically, they're a Sega at this point that also makes hardware if you want it. But like, it's been lightly rumored out there, but I do think the best play Microsoft could have is getting Steam running on Xboxes. And it's like, hey, you want a Steam machine? And also it has Game Pass on it, buy an Xbox, you can boot up your entire Steam library, it's good to go. That would actually, I think, turn some average gamer heads for like, wait, what's this? Like, I can just have easy access to my Steam library on my TV instead of hooking up my computer there. Like, I think that would be something. But who knows? It'll also just be a fun, weird, full loop, I suppose, for, Gabe Newell leaving Microsoft to start Valve, and then suddenly Valve becoming the savior of Microsoft's hardware. It'd be a fascinating development. So I think that is the only Hail Mary at this point. Like, what if, let's see, Avowed, Gears of War E-Day, Perfect Dark, Contraband, Clockwork Revolution, Everwild, State of Decay 3, if all those games came out and got perfect 10s, I still don't think it doesn't move the needle one bit for Microsoft. At this point, what do you got? It's just, who knows?
Especially when it's all on Game Pass.
Right. Yeah.
Such a tough one.
But yeah, their schedule, I think, is interesting to try and figure out. And I think it probably is Fable for the big holiday game.
Yeah.
Gears of War E-Day, I think they said 2025. Did they say that in that trailer?
I think so. I could definitely see that being a November release.
Yeah.
Very excited about that too.
Yeah. It's interesting to think of the prequels that they're pulling from right now with Gears of War, and then also Doom Eternal here, which is the next game that they showed.
Such a funny one because, like I said, we'll get to Dark Ages to Doom, but nobody really cares too much about the story of Doom. Like, it's not like there are books you can get into the lore, but that's not why people play those games. It's funny that they're like, here's the place and time it's set in. It was like, I don't care. You could just tell me it's medieval Doom, and I'd be like, great.
Yeah. Sorry, did I say Doom Eternal when I should have said Doom the Dark Ages?
Yeah, it's okay.
You did.
How foolish of me.
We've moved way beyond Eternal.
Yeah,
This is why everyone above the age of 33 got snagged. Okay? Their memories are fading.
This is obviously Doom the Dark Ages. Hey, Doom sickos, which I guess is Jacob and Alana. Sarah, I'm not talking about a Doom scroll sicko. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. But anyways, Doom the Dark Ages. What is going on? So this is it's a prequel. They say it's before Doom 2016. Specifically, they said it leads directly into Doom 2016's Slayer Testaments. What does that mean?
Well, the story of Doom 2016 was the best thing that they've done for the Dune story, which is you wake up naked on a table, you kill everyone, and you ignore every radio transmission that anyone gives you.
Right.
So, like,
Quick.
they're them leaning into this idea of, like, you'll find out what happened before Doom. I'm like, I don't care. The best part about Doom 2016 is it didn't tell me what had happened before I got naked on this table.
Lore.
Okay.
Where's like the Hyrule Historia of Doom?
That there is genuinely there are Doom books. Like, it's crazy. You can get really in depth if you want to. In like an Elden Ring kind of way, like a From Software kind of way. The Doom 2016 is all about Vega, right? Like, that's just the whole game. Which
the
very
Mr.
forgettable.
Robot.
Yes. I guess you can tell me how I'm gonna wake up on that table. I don't care.
Yeah, well, and then because it's like the worst part of Doom Eternal is you couldn't walk 5 steps without some new computer terminal being like, we're sorry if your future triggered by our thing. Like, it was just like a bunch of like snowflake jokes in the Doom world, and it like really, I was like, don't give me any more of this. Like, if you made your next game a silent film, I would be more into it.
But okay, this is naive. I'm sorry, I don't know Doom from a hole in the ground, but I thought it was like you went to Mars and then a bunch of demons were on Mars. And now it's like, no, it's sci-fi, but it's in hell in the Dark Ages. I just feel like I have no concept of what I'm supposed to think.
Hey, Ben, don't worry about it.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
Don't worry about it. Do you
Got
go
it.
to Mars? Yeah, you blow a hole in that thing. You ain't got to worry about it, you know?
Yeah, they open a
Basically-
portal to hell on Mars.
Yes.
I see.
All you really need to know is the Doom guy is eternally angry, and he's the savior, and he killed demon. Okay.
I got it. And now it's a
caught up.
lot more melee focused and slower.
Now he doesn't move. he stands and fights.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys were freaking out a little bit because the whole idea with Doom Eternal is, hey, this is a lot of platforming, and people kind of ding it, right? Of like a little bit too much jumping around. It seems like they rebounded hard by being like, now you stand your damn ground.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what I will say most positively about this is I think it is really cool that they are not they do not rest on their laurels, and they continue to reinvent gameplay systems.
Totally.
Because like Doom 2016 was this kind of like, oh my gosh, you can get a retro feeling game in a new package. You run super fast. You never have to reload. You're switching between 9 weapons at the same time. It's great. And then Eternal was like, you liked that. Now you have a grappling hook and a flamethrower and an ice bomb, and you can basically fly, and you can like do all this stuff. And it was dizzyingly complicated and like really good and worked well, but like required kind of extreme buy-in to really get a handle on everything that you were doing. And this kind of feels like they're like, we're stepping back from that. You are going to be, you're going to be blocking more moves and countering more moves, but you're not going to be like zipping around like you're an armored core. You're just going to be like a big guy walking this time.
Yeah, I will say I appreciate, kind of like you touched on, like as a huge Doom fan, like Doom 1993 is my #1 favorite game. Like I really, really loved it. I have so much Doom. I have a 3-foot tall Doom guy statue in my living room. Okay,
Get a
it's
room.
great. I was immediately like a little off put by how slow this looks until I saw in the menu that you can increase the game speed. Because even Doom 93 is really fast, right? Like they've always been really fast games. That's a big part of like jumping around and moving around is the combat. 2016 did a really great job of that in those little arenas. I will say I appreciate they're not just making the same game.
Yeah.
Doom Eternal's already pretty long. Great DLC, also pretty long. They are giving us the core things that you like about Doom, which is kill demon, but still actually fundamentally changing gameplay rather than just adding stuff or like Doom Eternal did, or like adding more traversal. I feel like it really is the go-to is like, what if we have the shoot up, but now you wall run? It's like a really common thing to do. So
Yeah.
even if I go, well, this is different, and then that's how I feel immediately seeing it, I way prefer that they make something that is distinctly different than just like make Doom Eternal 2,
Did
which
you
they did with 2016 as well.
Yeah. Did an eyebrow raise for either of you when they showed like, now you can get into a mech and fight a bunch of giant creatures? It's like a whole kaiju battle system thing here.
Not remotely surprising.
Okay.
It's just going to be like a bonus mode. I don't think that's going to be like a primary gameplay thing.
Okay.
I expected that to be a boss fight.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the
Or a
dragons
part of
flying
it, like
around and all that stuff.
So it's like I think that I'm kind of excited for it because I think that there are going to be really varied opinions on it, which is a cool thing to happen. But it seems like if you really didn't like Eternal, maybe this will be more your speed. And maybe it will kind of lose people who did like those previous games. But either way, I kind of think that's more interesting than just like, you like Doom 2016, we made a third one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose so. It's funny that it got so much of a pop in this game when they showed like the menu of like, yeah, you can speed up a lot of the core gameplay if you want to, and then also
love that,
you can
'cause that's the
adjust the
whole
parry window in a huge way. It's like
Rules.
people who are bad at parries, which is half of MinnMax, were saved. Now we can jump in and be competitors.
They
in
did it for
Doom
you.
Focus. Hell yeah, I need it.
Yeah.
Have they said anything about multiplayer this time around?
No.
God, I hope not.
Okay.
I mean, because they had that in the previous ones, and no one ever touched them.
It's that whole invasion
not my
mode that they
favorite.
scrapped and all that stuff. But yeah, oh, I guess they've said no multiplayer. For
Great. Yeah, focus on the thing that's best about it. Why not?
yeah.
The exploration thing is not a thing that I loved either. Like, I really prefer to have an opinion, which I do, than to be like, cool, more of the same. Like I said, it's also, I think, really tough because Doom Eternal, because it's so fast, is perfect trailer fuel. Like, anytime you look at that game, you're watching someone who's very good at it play it. It looked incredible. It's a little harder to market anything else because nothing is as fast as Doom Eternal. Like, you look at any other game in comparison, and it's just not going to look as nice in terms of like the quintessential boomer shooter, I guess, but in a modern era. I forgot what my train of thought was there.
The marketing's just going to look different, slower.
The open world.
Oh, exploration,
sorry.
yeah.
Yes, the open world is a thing that I'm also not a fan of, in that it seems like there is either that levels are much more open, which I don't want, Or potentially it's just a hub in the same way that the ship was in Eternal and 2016, especially in Eternal. That ship gets pretty big. You can walk around it a fair bit. Actually, is that maybe not in 2016? I just don't remember. It is in Eternal in any case. You have a little ship that you walk around and you take missions from. And I'm wondering if this little open world thing is more like that, where you take missions from there. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, if they're pushing the exploration that much, like find secrets, go around. It's the biggest Doom world ever. Like I think it's probably going to be navigating that space instead of just kind of the one kind of open area to explore.
It's like they've always had secrets, right? That's like, Doom 1's even got that. But if it's like, I feel like such a core part of Doom gameplay is where they place particular enemies, right? Like you're trying to figure out the puzzle that is these levels, and then you walk into a room and there's 10 cacodemons. And you go, oh, I have to figure out which gun to pull out. I'm going to back out of this room. I'm going to change my stuff. I'm going to go back in. Or, like, there's a pinky and, like, there's 2 invisible pink. Like, it's so much about, like, where they're placed specifically is really important. I cannot even imagine an open world version of that.
Yeah.
Like, what does that even look like? Like, even in the arena parts of Doom 2016 and Eternal, they're still really specific about like where they put a mancubus. Like it's really, really carefully thought out. So I'm very curious to see what it looks like. In my head, I'm like, I want it, but it's change. People always do that to change. It could be awesome. I hope it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out damn soon. It's coming out May 15th. April and May.
Also, just got an email about the collector's edition.
Okay, run down the stats.
4-foot tall Doom guy?
Hello.
12-inch Doomslayer statue, keycard replica.
12 inches of Doomslayer.
Oh, it's not 18. Campaign DLC already. Divinity skin pack, which looks like it's like a
Divinity original skin pack.
Wait a minute. So it's like you're like an angel? Because
it kind of looks like that. It kind of looks like the Magic the Gathering, like white cloths, you know what I mean? Like it sort
Sarah
of
does.
looks like that.
Because in the end of Eternal, you were fighting angels. Like that was part of
What
it.
a twist!
Wait, so you go to heaven?
Oh my god!
Or do you
Yeah,
open a
you're
portal
right.
and the angels
that
come
whole,
through it?
That terrible boss fight
Yes.
where they like
I go,
attack
like,
the ground constantly. You're right. Yeah, you do kind of fight angels at the end of that game.
Weird. All right. Well, hey, there you go, everybody.
I'm down.
Doom Dark Ages, May 15th. Grind some skulls in a funky looking gun. You know what's not funky looking? The human body. As exemplified by MeUndies, everybody. Nothing funky about these undies. Valentine's Day is coming up. You can treat yourself, treat a loved one more specifically, to new underwear. You know, on a romantic Valentine's Day, don't bum your partner out by having crappy underwear. Get nice, beautiful underwear. Wow them, I say. Wow them. And don't buy boxers that are covered in Ursula from Little Mermaid like I did for MeUndies, because maybe your partner will say, I can't take you seriously when you wear the Ursula underwear. Can you please have some classy underwear like they provide at MeUndies? You can check it out. They have style for everyone, from all black classics to fun expressive prints. MeUndies has a look for absolutely everybody. You can try their sexy new Valentine's Day prints like electric hearts or lovebirds, Jacob. Look at that. The lovebirds yourself, new fiance. Plus, they come in sizes extra small to 4 extra large, guaranteeing a flattering cut for every body. Unmatched comfort. MeUndies signature fabric is as soft as a warm hug from your favorite sweater. We just had somebody in the Discord be like, hey, I want to get new underwear. Is MeUndies actually good, or are they just saying this on the podcast? And I had to jump in there to be like, no, I actually think this underwear is great. Like every time I pull up my underwear drawer, Sarah, and there's a MeUndies thing on the top of the heap, a wave of relief. I don't have to wear my old bad underwear from like 15 years ago.
I'm just so glad you got the sponsorship so you could get rid of all those underwear that you said had
Yeah,
holes in them.
here's an idea for your
I am
life.
just
Get rid of your
we need
old
more
bad
sponsors
underwear.
to just help. We need more sponsors to help improve Ben's quality of life.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, like the HelloFresh, the MeUndies, like they're saving you.
Yeah,
I know.
Ben's thriving out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to underwear, everybody. So this Valentine's Day, good things come in packages at MeUndies. Oh, you can't say that. Get 20% off your first order plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/MinnMax. Enter promo code MinnMax. That's MeUndies.com/MinnMax. Code MinnMax for 20% off plus free shipping. MeUndies, comfort from the outside in. Outside, nothing's more outside than outer space, Jacob Geller. There's a game called Citizen
That's right.
Sleeper 2. that is coming out at the end of the month, January 31st. A game that you've been playing, Kelsey Lewin's been playing. Kelsey's been loving it. She'll be talking about it in the future. We'll probably check back in on this one. But this is the sequel to the game from just 2 years ago that was, how would you describe it? It's a story-focused game, but it has tabletop elements because you're rolling the dice and setting the dice for different factors within this ship. Did you play Citizen Sleeper, Sarah?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Is it scratching your tabletop love?
I enjoyed like the dice and the fact that like they roll every morning and then you can get certain abilities and you kind of only have a certain amount of ways to spend your day and you like spend energy to do more things. So it's a very strategic game.
Yeah.
That toward the end I just feel like I got a little discouraged with it. If you keep getting bad rolls or like you keep not making those things you want to make, you're just like, well, you can just get in a pretty bad position.
Yeah, but Citizen Sleeper 2, whole new frontier now. Instead of just one space station, now you have a little home base ship, and you're flying around to a bunch of different space stations, kind of expanding everything going on here. Jacob, how much have you played of Citizen Sleeper 2?
I think I can say I've beat it. I'm not going to talk about the extent. I'll keep this pretty mechanical, but I have finished that game. Citizen Sleeper 1 was in, 2022. My number 2 game of the year. I adored it.
Whoa.
And this is as good, if not better. It doesn't blow it out of the water, but that's just because Citizen Sleeper did so many things so well, and I think this does the same things really, really well.
Which is narrative strength?
Yes, it is narrative strength in that it is just an incredibly well-written game. In just like, it is, if you don't like reading, you won't like this game, but at the same time, you should give it a shot because the writing is good enough that it does not feel like work to read it. And then the other thing that it does really well, and this is where actually some of the mechanical changes come in and are good, is like gamifying stress in a way that is different than I don't know, some sort of like survival game or whatever, and like makes you want to keep playing rather than wanting to log off. But like I think the biggest difference between Citizen Sleeper and something like a Disco Elysium or like another game that people talk about, that kind of lives on the strength of its writing, is Citizen Sleeper has a continuous forward pull because you're always thinking about the things that you will be able to do on a new day with your new dice. It's almost, now that I've played Metaphor and I kind of understand the hook of like the calendar system in that and the Persona games, it feels almost similar to that in that like every day you can't quite do everything that you want to, and then you wake up the next day and you have new dice and you're like, now I can get to that thing. Now I've got like a 6 locked and loaded, and so I can like know that I'm gonna get the best result from this thing. And it is just, it's really compelling. I can just talk about it for like 10 minutes, but I don't know, ask me questions so I don't just ramble.
Yeah, I'm curious about like that. How is it gamifying stress in a way that's fun and not just depleting?
So the way that it works is, in this one specifically, something new that they've added is you get kind of contracts which are like single time missions. So you're on a big space station and they say, hey, I heard that there's an abandoned freighter out there and it has a bunch of coolant, and that coolant's really expensive, but also the, external shielding on the freighter is cracking, and so it's going to get hit by a bunch of asteroids in 5 days. And so you go out there and you are working on getting this coolant from this freighter. This is just an example that I've made up. And one of the things that the game does really well for how kind of mechanically, you're not controlling any character in 3D space. It's all just text and menus, but it really makes you feel like you're doing work and you're spending like days doing something in a way that I find really rewarding, where it's like, you can't just roll a 6 once and get all the coolant and put it in your ship. You need to basically like be investing dice in your ability to accomplish a task. And so you're doing that and you're like, okay, that was a really good roll, that was a bad roll, and then a really bad roll, you're going to like add tension to your entire crew. And the effects that can start having is like, if you have a high enough tension, if you roll like a 1, your dice will break. And so then instead of having six dice to use over the course of the day, you only have 5. And if you roll another one, like that one can break as well. And so you're like, you feel like you're racing against the clock. You're like, I have to get this done because I can see these asteroids are coming in, but also if I push this a little further, I might be, like breaking my dice and unable to do things. And it's hard to, I'm not exactly sure why it's not just unpleasant, because this sounds like I'm describing a nightmare scenario, and it kind of is, but the fact is you usually succeed, and it feels like you're succeeding by the skin of your teeth. Like it's really well balanced to make it feel like you're failing or might fail, but then you just pull it out and you go back and you've got that coolant and you get a whole bunch of money, and suddenly you have like a bunch of options are open to you that you didn't have before. And so it's just like tension and then release, and then you can use that release to like, get a new crew member or something. And then, the next time you go out, you'll be a little better prepared. And so it's just like, it is really well paced and well mechanically balanced, in addition to just being like a beautifully written game.
I'm looking at gameplay of the first game right now, and the thing that stands out to me more than anything is like the pacing looks very unique. Like, I don't know how to phrase
just for the amount of reading that you're
it feels
going
like
through?
you're constantly running out of time.
That is kind of
how
the
I can
impression
describe
that
it.
I get. It's like almost like
Because
frantic
everything has
in a
like
way.
a deadline. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's made some tweaks where in the original game you needed something called stabilizer, and it was like literally always there was a countdown clock that's just like, if you don't have this amount of money to buy this stabilizer by this day, game over. And this does not have that, and they've replaced it with a number of smaller and more easily solved timers, but you have more of them. And so in this case, you can run out of hunger, you can get stressed, you can get like glitches in your system that you need to fix, but it doesn't have the one, like, if this hits 0, game over, which was a really stressful aspect of
So does that make it like a
first one.
fundamentally different game?
No, I think it feels pretty similar, because again, in the first one, it was balanced to where you wouldn't actually run out of stabilizer and get a game over. Like, it feels really similar to the first one, to the extent that if you start with Citizen Sleeper 2, which you can because the stories are discrete and independent, and you love it, you can go back to 1 and you'll get just as much of a kick out of it. Like, it's not a revolutionary leap from 1, but it's just because 1 was already so good.
Yeah. I mean, talking about the strength of the writing, like even the very opening of the game, where it's like, hey, you're a character basically with amnesia. You don't know the past. And you're encountering somebody else who knew you as you used to be. And, Jacob, correct me and fill in holes if I'm missing it here, but I feel like most of the time games don't really do service to that idea of amnesia, of like, oh, you forgot everything? All right, well, we'll train you back up. This will be fun. And like, I've never felt guilt before about having amnesia in a game, but even the opening of this game, it's like, are you kidding me? We need to tell you this. Like, it truly feels like you're being dropped into this person had this whole life before, and now it's like, I need to teach Jacob Geller how to use a microphone again. This is so annoying. We have a job to do right now. Let's go. It's a really cool vibe.
Yeah, and the beginning is like really cool and kind of a sub story within the story. And there's one, I'll talk about just like one side mission, which does not have a bearing on the larger story. But there's like this side mission you get where there's a ship stalled out here. Can you just go check it out and see what's going on? And you go, and it's this like old guy who's like, yeah, I don't know, my motor ran out, my spaceship motor. And you go in and you're like, oh my God, because it is effectively like this person has been modifying this ship for like 40 years. And so it's like every piece is like from a different spaceship that's like welded on, and there is no manual, and only he really knows how it works, and he doesn't know how all of it works, or he's forgotten or whatever. And you spend like days out there just like trying to figure out the shape of the engine so you can do something to it.
Cool.
And then when you do, you get this like unbelievably moving piece of writing about like what it means to like get to know someone's life's craft or whatever. Like it really just kind of, it manages to meld this idea of like work and passion and whatever in ways that I just found consistently really kind of beautiful.
Yeah, Eurogamer has a nice piece about the creator Gareth Martin here, and how specifically they really wanted to lean into Mass Effect 2 inspiration. Like we want Citizen Sleeper 2 to be about the ship and the crew and the stories of the crew on the ship, and that feels like it comes through for you.
Yes, yeah. The crew is a new thing that you're kind of gathering up people, and there are like really cool things. Or like one time someone asked me on a mission, and I like missed the deadline to do it. And then later I like met their brother, and they were like, she went out there and she hasn't been back. And so then I did like a different mission that was like going to see what happened since I didn't do this first one. And so, yeah, it has really strong character writing. The characters are very different, and they feel different, and you can kind of decide which ones you want to invest more time in the story with.
Yeah.
You have sold me on these games. Which one should I play first?
I think you can start with 2. Janet actually asked, I would say go to the Citizen Sleeper wiki and just read what is a sleeper, like the main page, because it is this kind of concept that is spelled out a lot in 1 and not that much in 2. But then you can just start on 2, and cool. There's really, you won't be missing any story by not playing 1, and then you can go back and play 1, and it's awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, January 31st, Citizen Sleeper 2 is out. Citizen Sleeper 2 Starward Vector, to be specific, for playing Trivia Tower here. But January 31st, it's out on everything, and it's on Game Pass, too. So, hey, big Game Pass themed episode here accidentally. Hey, Sarah, do you know how this whole thing operates?
Patreon.
That's right, everybody. Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. If you think you're on the right track, if you like the fact that we brought Alana in for a month, you can jump in, help support us by going to Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. Find a tier that's right for you. $2 tier. You can submit questions, comments every single week. You unlock access to the Discord. Ton of benefits there. Just $2. Jump in. You can cancel whenever you want. If, the $10 tier is becoming too much for you, feel free to drop down, do whatever you need to do, and it keeps us aloft. We appreciate it. Also, special shout out, MinnMax Spotlight. We did 2 of them last year, visiting studios, kind of going back to the Game Informer cover story visit days. And so we'd love to do a lot more of those this year. And we have several irons in the fire, which are exciting. But just to throw out a blanket thing, if you are a game developer out there, you want us to visit your studio, reach out. Hanson@MinnMax.com. Reach out. We'd love to talk to you and, potentially open more doors there, because as Alana knows, we can read headlines, but actually getting to visit a studio, even just for a day, you just feel like you understand so much more. Obviously, still a glimpse peering through the keyhole of game development, but it helps so much more just to get a real sense of what is going on in this industry more than tweets and blue sky posts and all that fun stuff.
Especially if you work out of a castle.
Right.
Or
Yeah,
old
can we
manor.
go to that manor?
We would love to, yeah.
Can I come?
Yeah, we will stream from that manor, please, Expedition 33. But then also for Over 33, we will off ourselves in your manor. It'll be lovely.
Yeah.
Hey, special thanks to good folks like I Am 8-Bit. They want you to know about the Persona 5 Royal Vinyl. They have a huge vinyl collection for Persona there at I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store. You can check it out. The Persona 5 Royal soundtrack in particular, nothing better. Beautiful album art by Drew Wise. It's all been mastered for vinyl by Townsend Mastering. If you show up at a dork's house and they have the Persona 5 Royal vinyl, immediate best friends.
Huge flex.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So check that out. And you can go to I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store, and everything there, except, I should have emphasized this, except for the Persona 5 Royal and the Persona vinyls. For some reason, it doesn't apply to those. But for everything else, you can get 10% off if you use the promo code 22s and 15. spelled out, no space, 2 2s and 1 5 for 10% off of everything at iMapeIt's wonderful online store. Follow the link in the description, check it out, use that promo code, keep iMapeIt around because they are fantastic supporters of MinnMax and the MinnMax community, because each and every week iMapeIt ships out a prize from their wonderful online store to whoever has the best question of the week. If you support us at any tier on Patreon, you can make the show better by submitting a question. We choose our favorite question submitted every week and they win a prize. And this week, thanks to iMapeIt, they're shipping out a great vinyl soundtrack to, what's this, Jacob Geller? Kentucky Route Zero?
Oh, Ben's least favorite game?
I won't bash the soundtrack. Great soundtrack, no doubt about that. But you can win that vinyl soundtrack by having the best question of the week. So here we go. Seth Seaman writes in, they say, Dear MinnMaxers and Dear MiniMaxers, which are the part-timers, I guess. That's confusing. One time, I was in a GameStop, just minding my own business, looking for games, when I overheard a lady with a very strong Southern accent say to one of the employees, I'm not going to do a Southern accent because it's very offensive, but this old lady, she said,
Come on.
all right.
Can you just do a strong Minnesota accent?
I feel like I've become a parody. I can't do it. I've become a parody of myself.
Before you were talking about, when you were talking about HelloFresh was the first time I heard the accent because of the way you said bag.
Ooh, okay. It came
You
through.
went big or something? Yeah.
Yep.
But if somebody asked
It was
you
in
to
there.
if somebody asked you to do like an Australian accent, could you do it, Alana, or you just get too up in your head? Like,
Oh, no. I go, g'day, mate. How's it going?
yeah, all right.
But yeah, it's you got to just get comfortable with it.
Yeah. So anyways, this lady at the store, she said, he likes that Jake and Dexter. Obviously, she was talking about Jack.
From a Southern to Australian, but you did a great job.
Thank you. Obviously, she's talking about Jack and Dexter, but I was filled with so much secondhand embarrassment that I nearly walked out of the store when she called it Jake and Dexter. Can any of you remember a time where you had nearly unbearable video game embarrassment? P.S. It's so cool that Alana's on the show for a bit. I've been a big fan for years, and it's an awesome crossover. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Very sweet. Secondhand
Look,
embarrassment.
I think everybody should be allowed to be wrong about things, and we should be completely okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be wrong about the names of video games. I, one time on a panel, kept talking about... I was talking about Subnautica, and I think I kept accidentally saying Spelunky or something like that. And I was like, and everyone was like, what do you mean? And I was like, what? What have I done wrong? And then I think someone in the crowd yelled at me, and I was like, oh! It was not great.
Yeah. That's like calling Doom the Dark Ages Doom Eternal. Like, how juvenile.
Yeah,
how
who
stupid.
would do that?
Yuck.
I mean, it's since the story is about secondhand embarrassment.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime you went into a GameStop and there was a woman either working there or not working there, she was being treated horribly. Either like working there by the clientele who came in, or not working there, being treated horribly by the client or like by the staff. It was like every time if I happened to go in like with a girlfriend, I'd just be like, I'm so sorry for just this environment writ large.
The vibe of a GameStop.
GameStop,
Yeah.
the Australian version EB Games for like most of my high school years. Like after I left McDonald's, I went straight for a game store and worked there the whole time. I actually got the job at EB Games because they had one of those consoles set up to an Xbox 360 and they had Batman Arkham Asylum, and it was like at the time where I couldn't afford it, and I finished the game. They like let me have a save file, so I would go in every day after school and
So
finish the game. So they offered me a job. I don't even think I submitted a resume, but I don't feel like I dealt with like a ton of terrible treatment. Like the people I worked with were wonderful. I would occasionally have somebody be like, can I talk to a dude? But I do really
Jesus.
distinctly remember this one day where there was a Game Informer cover on the desk, and this boy who would have been maybe 12 or something was like, what is this game? And I don't remember what it was, but it was a female protagonist holding a gun. And he was like, I don't buy that. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, women don't do that. And I was like, what do you mean women don't do that? And he was like, women don't hold guns and like get in wars. And I was like, you gotta speak to your parents, dude. Like, we gotta have a chat about, like, he wasn't sexist to me, but like openly to this female video game character right next to me at the time. And I was like, where's this guy's dad?
He was looking to you for confirmation.
Right.
Being like, hey, women don't get in wars, right?
Can
Sounds
I
like
vote
they're
for you?
smart. That's all I'm gonna say.
Interesting. Captain Cobblepot writes in and says, hey, MinnMaxers, how should studios start balancing feedback from players without sacrificing their creative vision? No Man's
I
Sky.
chose this one.
Yeah, please take it away.
Because they already do. I think people underestimate just how pivotal playtesting is in the process. Like, games are playtested the whole way. Like, you can even have one chunk of a game be playtested, 2 years before something is shipped. So they are playtested extensively the whole way through. And it's why a lot of the things where player feedback comes out and people don't like something, it can be really surprising. Like, certain games that have flopped critically and commercially have playtested extremely well. And it's really tough to balance these kinds of things. Like, you may have seen criticisms of games that people said that there were too many hints. Maybe that may have happened at some point.
I don't recall that as an instance, but yeah.
Not unspecific. In playtesting, people said they were confused, and so that's a way to like try and fix that consistent feedback issue, is being like, okay, well, people keep saying they don't know what they're doing over and over again in all of our playtesting, so we have to accommodate for that. So like, player feedback, I would say, is way more of game dev than you think it is. Like, it is extremely important and taken very, very seriously. It's just difficult to do that with the broader public, because so much of that can get like caught up in so many waves of biases and et cetera. It's not like you shouldn't listen to what people want, obviously. But yeah, it is there every single step of the way and is extremely important. And most decisions, like if you have questions about why something was decided, a lot of the time is either because of budget reasons, they didn't have a choice, or because playtester told them to. And the playtesting pool is often a mix between people who play a lot of games, people who play no games, and people who've played like a lot of the franchise. So they'll like mix up the pool pretty significantly. Devs also playtest things. So like, say if I'm working on one level, someone's worked on a different level, like they'll have you playtest each other's levels or like boss fights, and often like the gameplay is like streamed so everybody can watch it. Like, basically player feedback, core pillar of game dev, I would say, pretty much everywhere. It's much bigger than I realized before I worked in development.
I think it's fascinating to think of those instances though, and I'm curious to know how many are out there of, like, if you get the player feedback from the testing and it's like, hey, this part is kind of a lull, a lot of people say it's kind of boring, and those moments where the people at the head of the project can say, we know, but we're standing our ground. Like, we think it's really important, even though this is testing poorly, we think this needs to stay in for the larger vision of this game. Do you think in this day and age in AAA that can stand at all, or if it's just, hey, it's testing poorly, it's got to go no matter what?
It depends on the studio, but I think game directors still get to make that call. Like, if something is extremely important to them, at the end of the day, they still get to say, no, we're going to keep this in. Like, that, again, really would depend on the studio. If you have a publisher who's like, absolutely not, then you would get rid of it. But yeah, I think the game director has final say at the end of the day, and they're not going to cut something that they particularly feel very attached to.
Right.
Which is the way it should be, I think.
Yeah. And Sarah, I guess with Fields of Mystery, it's just
and
nothing but
I feel like
playtesters.
as someone who like did community management, and a lot of it is feedback gathering, players have a misunderstanding of the time things can take. So a lot of times we'll be seeing feedback and it's like something that we already knew about or something that we already had planned. I see it all the time, right? Where you see player feedback and you know that it's already in the works, and then you put it out and people are like, that's because I said something. And it's like, sometimes that's totally true. But like, most of the times we know. So like, for How It Was Unleashed, we knew that the community really liked Acceleracers, this like 90s VHS thing, right? They love it. So like, when we were making How It Was Unleashed, we already knew we wanted an Acceleracers DLC. It just took longer than the game. So we released How It Was Unleashed, and then later the DLC came out, and they're like, it's because when the game came out, we all asked for it. And it's like, we already knew. We already knew. We already had you clocked. We already wrote it down. Like, so much of the feedback we already know, but some of it can be surprising, and some of it is just a fundamental misunderstanding of the game. You get some feedback where you're like, if we did that, it would probably change the game, but, we listen to most feedback. We already have most of it planned, so...
Yeah, it's interesting.
But we still love it.
There's also a thing I also didn't know before working in dev. Players can be... It's like, in the politest way possible, players can be wrong about what they say they want. They can say that they care about something, but fundamentally they don't. Like, the truth is, we talk about ludonarrative dissonance. That's a fancy talking point, but you actually don't want the version of Uncharted when Nathan Drake stops killing people. Like, you don't. Like, if there's less combat in that game, then you're like, I wish this segment had more combat, and that is what the playtesting will say, and it's also what the reviews would say. Like, they'll say, but it is not in line with this character, and I like get the discussions,
Right.
but you don't want the version of that you're talking about. Like, there was like some silliness around God of War Ragnarok, like someone tried to like make something blow up about the animation for Kratos getting in the boat being the same,
right?
And they tried to make it this big thing, and it's like, okay, but in order to change every animation that we have for this exact same player model, that would require us to pull resources from other things, because everything is just like about the money and time that we spend on everything. It's like, you can complain about wanting that to be different all you want, and maybe you think that you do, but I think you're wrong. And like, it's a weird thing to navigate of like, players think they want things that they want in theory but don't actually want in action. And yeah, I've heard some people who've been in game development like for actually a long time. I'm basically a game dev baby, but say some really insightful stuff about like common criticisms that get where they come from, but in practice are just wrong. And it's not a thing I ever would have thought about before.
Yeah. And that's part of where you feel like your position is in the game industry at this point, is to try and help communicate. No, really, I need to push this message on behalf of the developers a little bit more clearly to a gaming audience of, you don't understand
Hopefully,
this core
yeah.
idea.
So someone said, how to Concord test internally. I haven't played that game, and I like barely even knew anything about it. It's a really interesting one. Like, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that the most recent Saints Row game that flopped, tested really well.
That's fascinating.
They were surprised that people didn't like that game. All of the mock reviews were really positive. Like, they had no idea that people weren't going to like that game, which is like, seems on the outside to be really surprising.
Yeah, even like Redfall, Phil Spencer said in that kind of funny interview, he's like, it tested well. You think he was lying?
Yes.
Why?
Because I think he was lying.
What does he have to gain?
I mean, sometimes like it does get to a point internally where you're testing a game and you know it's not going to do well. I've played several games that I played internally and I'm like, this ain't it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you are one voice in a sea of a corporation that's going in a certain direction, and you're like, you can't turn that ship around.
Yeah. It can also be really hard, I think, when you work on something for a long time, especially where video games are concerned. You have no idea. Like, by the time that Ragnarok came out, I had played it so many times in so many versions. I really had no idea if it was good or not anymore. And I was talking to friends who've worked in dev for a lot longer than me, like, while I was feeling that way, just to be like, is this normal? And everyone was like, oh, yeah. Because, like, all you see is, like, oh, this has changed from what this used to be like, or this thing hasn't been implemented yet, or, like, oh, I wish we could have done that. You just really can't separate yourself from it. And I don't feel like I had that when I was a journalist. I feel like I was like, we did a great job of this E3 stream, everybody. That one was great. You know what I mean? But when you're working on something for however, like 5 years, you know, you just kind of go, have we made something good? And you have no way of knowing anymore. It's a really weird thing that happens.
It'd have to be such a wave of relief then when the mock reviews come in, even if they're different from where the final reviews are going to land, just to have some wave of objectivity kind of rush to the studio.
That's why they're
like
so
that.
important, because you really just like, you lose the forest through the trees really bad when you're working on something that intimately.
Yeah. Not Reorder writes in, they say, hey, how long did it take for the allure of getting game codes early to wear off?
Still hasn't,
I don't
maybe.
think it has worn off.
Yeah. I shouldn't be saying this on a public podcast, but there are moments where I'm like, I can't believe they just give us this game ahead of time. And they say, like, you're cool, right? And I'm like, yeah, we're cool. But, like, we could just put up a stream of this. And just think, you guys, we'd get so many views.
It's a funny one because, like, I remember the first game that I got from a publisher, I think it was Darksiders 2, and it's from THQ Australia, who no longer exists. And I was, like, so excited. Like, especially because they used to be physical back then, and you'd have, like, the promotional copy, not the resale. And I was, like, it took years before I stopped wanting to be like, I got the game, like, freaking out about it. There was a point, though, especially when working at IGN, where you really have to churn out reviews, like, they're so important, that I think I got to be like, come on, give me the code, please. I have to work on this, please. We need this goddamn code. And it's like less about excitement and more about like the dread of turning a review over.
Right.
So you stop being excited because you start being so desperate to be able to not have to rush through the game, because I think that can hurt a review. Like, if you have to rush through something, you're not really getting the authentic game experience. So that definitely happened to me. I actually reject a lot of game codes now, though. I don't really know why I feel like I ethically or morally have to do that, but if I'm not going to be able to cover something, I won't take it anymore, and I'll be like, no, I'm traveling that week, so I'm just going to buy it instead. Like, I started doing that recently, and
Yeah, the secret, I mean, I think certain people really get off on that idea of like, I know something you don't know. Like I know that this game's good ahead of everybody else, and I think that attitude sucks ass. But what I do think is still really important, and I'm so thankful for it, is like being able to play these games in a vacuum of not everybody screaming, not everybody spoiling stuff. Like, Spider-Man 2, a game I really love. Like, I really wonder if I would have a completely different take on that if I played it after people kind of spoiled bits and pieces there, and I saw an avalanche of reviews, but getting that weeks ahead of time, just getting to sit back and enjoy that story, like I was so thankful for that experience.
Yeah, it's the way it all used to be, dude.
Yeah.
What a privilege.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and it's like, this is a podcast where it's less official and whatever, but it's like, I feel weird making like declarative statements about the quality of a game without having seen the end of the game. And so like part of why I value getting something early is just like, if I'm gonna talk about it, like our first Final Fantasy VII discussion, I was really grateful that I had beaten that game, because if I hadn't, I would just kind of be like, I don't know, some good and some bad, and it doesn't feel like I'm not okay with my thoughts really solidifying, at least on like a story-focused game, until it's done. And if like,
totally.
That's kind of what
Totally
what we're maybe doing here.
Are you saying that it wasn't very insightful when I talked about the first line of dialogue from Citizen Sleeper 2? That wasn't a helpful take?
I loved it when you did that.
Oh, thanks, Alana. Thanks.
Given an honest response to it.
The two most recent chat comments is Aaron Weaver said Elden Ring early code would hit so different. That one was awesome, and some of them are like that because you're playing it while also texting a bunch of people that you know, because you can't talk about it publicly. And what I was doing with the two friends that I was texting the most often, I think it was Andy Cortez from Kinda Funny and Timur Hussein from Giant Bomb / GameSpot. And I was like, hey, have you been here on the map? And we would just send each other pictures of the map and circle things, but we wouldn't say what it was.
Oh, cool.
And then like one of them would be like, yes, oh my God. And like, it was just like all of this, like, because no one else is seeing it, and you're like freaking out about the stuff that you're seeing, and like all the realizations that come with playing that game. That one was uniquely incredible. And the second comment was knowing about the depths in
Tears of the Kingdom.
TOTK for weeks. How do you sit on that? I actually think that stuff's exciting. So like when you're playing a game early and you're like having those moments of being like, what? And then you're excited for the rest of the world to get to see it as well. Like to see people's reactions and how excited they're going to be. Like that is always really, really fun.
Yeah. Mason Callow writes in, says, I'm here with maybe a divisive question. So buckle up, everybody. Should a boss hurt you if you make contact with it? Or should it only hurt you if it actually hits you with an attack?
I don't like when the boss hurts me when I bump into it.
No
I
bump
agree.
hurt?
I mean, it
Makes
depends on
sense.
the size of the boss. And like, but it just feels so weird. You're like, wait, oh, what hit me? Oh, I grazed its ankle a little bit.
Yeah, if the boss like punches, then contact shouldn't. If it's just like a wiggler in Mario and it just runs around, like sure, okay, contact damage. But yeah, if a boss has a sword, then just like running into it should be fine.
And it's kind of cool, too, to make contact, like touching it real quick. Like, oh, isn't that a fun thing?
Super fun.
Unless it's on fire, then I think I have the same stance.
Okay.
It shouldn't hurt you if you touch it.
Or covered
Unless
with like
it-
toxic spines.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, then I get it. But otherwise, it doesn't happen in real life. Shouldn't happen in the game.
There we go.
Ooh,
like the boss doesn't get
except
hurt
for
when they
Crash
touch
Bandicoot.
me.
Yeah, okay, maybe it is game relevant. Maybe there are some that
So-
it's okay with.
You crash, because you don't want to rub up against Uka Uka or anything. Like, it needs to have its dignity,
It's like I was gonna say it's such an important part of Crash Bandicoot gameplay, but yes, it's about dignity. You're right.
Yeah. Neil McMahon writes in, God, what's better than a Crash Bandicoot boss? Those lovable rogues. Right, Jacob?
I don't think I've ever fought a Crash Bandicoot boss.
Pinstripe Potteroo, all of our favorite freaks. Anyway, sorry, Neil McMahon writes in and says, hey, you ever play the first level of a game that blows you away with the scope, polish, and amount of details shown in the opening hour or two? Then slowly each level/area gets a little less grand? Do you think game devs build games in order? Can you feel it kind of deflating in enthusiasm like that?
So I also picked this one.
Please.
Game devs absolutely do not build games in order. The first thing that you make is first playable, which is basically like a demo that you would show your publisher or that you want to show the rest of the team to make sure that they understand what the game is. And the first playable can be the start of the game, but it can also be a chunk somewhere in the middle. It could be either. The reason that you might feel deflation towards the end of the game is because when they are trying to ship it, they are prioritizing the parts that they know you'll play. So like, it's not that the end hasn't been done. It's not that they're tired of by the end of it. It's like that end could have been built first, but in terms of polish and refinement, they are less likely to do that to the end when the things that everyone is going to play earlier, more people are going to play. Like it's basically just the end of the game can get away with not being as good if we have to make those choices because of the way people play games.
Right.
And in those the special features that I love in the original God of War trilogy, they would talk about like, we made the rest of the game first so we knew exactly what we were doing, and then we could make the first level the craziest thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can
smart.
be like totally out of order. Like sometimes it's just like based on who has the time to finish something first, and then different departments can't start working on it. It's all like extremely complicated, and thank God it's never been my job to decide what gets made in what order. That's more of a producer's job. But
Oh my God.
yeah, it's all over the place for sure.
Yeah. The classic Double Fine Adventure bit where Tim Schafer's talking about how making a game is like dropping paint onto the board. It's like, okay, some publishers want you to put down the paint sequentially, and it does not work like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to prioritize, or at least if you have, you know, that level of production organization, prioritize stuff that's going to be in trailers, like the cool stuff. Because like you hate being there as a marketer and you're like, this is done, right? I can film this, and they're like, no, and I'm like, could you move this up so I can film this? It's really important.
It looks good to me. Let's just get it out there, please. Yeah. Michael Lane writes in and says, hey, everybody, what's the most random game that you've played recently? Tonight, my wife pulled out a copy of Miss Pac-Man's Maze Madness on the PS1, and it was actually all right. Any curious oddities you've checked out? I didn't even know about this game. I got to look into this. This Miss Pac-Man.
I just recently went back and
Weird.
got all of the endings in the Forgotten City.
Oh, interesting.
Like not that
Okay.
random, but that is what I did while everything was on fire.
Were you kind of inspired by Indiana Jones?
Probably, actually, I don't even know
Okay.
what made me think of it. But I
Yeah.
went, let me go get those other endings I never got. And it was a great time.
Right on.
I
Sarah?
talked about 2 weeks ago. I played Prototype 2007. Name
That's
Oh,
good.
hell yeah.
Name a more random game than that.
Hell yeah.
Uh,
I loved that game. How did it hold up?
Pretty good. I mean, like,
was his
you know,
name? Alex
story not
Mercer?
great.
Is that
Alex
his name?
Mercer.
Yeah.
Did you have one, Sarah?
What a time.
Oh yeah, I picked up LA Noire to kind of like fill the gap, the January gap for stream games.
Hell
I
yeah.
never played it before.
Oh, cool.
It holds up very bizarrely with the facial technology. Everything kind of looks like a deep fake
Yeah. It
to like
is.
the modern eye,
is.
which it basically is. But you're
Yeah.
like, it's like a little scary.
Yeah.
I know, especially
Um,
because they overact a bit too much.
Yeah.
But
It
I mean,
was
yeah, that
weird
sank
then.
the whole studio.
Like, this isn't a retrospect thing. Like, I remember when it came out, I wasn't like, this is the greatest face I've ever seen in a video game. I was like, this is bizarre.
I'm like, are they lying or having a stroke?
I know,
I
it's
can't
too
tell.
much. And like, I love the doubt button. There's
Yeah.
so many memes about it. You press doubt, and then they're like, dare you? You're like, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I
It's
wanted.
so-
I was just doubt,
I'm,
not
like,
accused of lying.
Losing my mind playing that game because you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I think they're lying. Like, let me just like hit the doubt button, and then he goes like, I'm gonna throw you in jail and tell everybody you're a child molester. And I'm like, whoa, 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 like, pump the brakes, okay? Pump the brakes.
I heard that just originally it was like accuse or something. Then I think like later on they changed the wording, but like when they were recording and
Apparently,
writing
it's-
everything, it was a different word.
It's lie, doubt, truth, and then. But I've also seen it as like good cop, bad cop, and to be honest, none of them make sense. None of it holds up. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think we probably should have questioned this a little more.
Yeah. Did you find?
Is it still good? The last time I played it was when it came out on Switch.
I can't tell because I don't like the main feature of the game, which is like the doubt, lie, truth. I feel
Yeah.
like too much of it hinges on you randomly guessing based on somebody's facial movements and not enough hinges on the evidence that you spend a really long time finding.
Right.
So I do get a little frustrated with that. But I can't tell if like maybe it's still cool driving around in like old LA, California, like it, you know, that holds up, but I don't
Yeah, the
think
map was cool.
the general gameplay loop holds up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is like I kind of finished my little retro gaming space in the basement like a real dork. It's kind of backed by the production nook back there, Sarah. But the first thing that I really played through all the way down there was Guitar Hero Encore Rocks the 80s. technically Harmonix's last Guitar Hero game before they moved on to Rock Band, which is it's basically, you know, the equivalent of kind of DLC for Guitar Hero 2, right? Where it's all of those animations and stuff like that, but they just load in a bunch of 80s music and put like a, you know, 80s aesthetics over the entire thing. But like playing through that game in that stupid little retro space on a CRT,
Hell yeah.
Honestly, most satisfying gaming moment I've had in like 10 months, I'd say, ballpark. And I'm just like, God, this feels so good. This is so satisfying. My hand is sore as can be. It's a classic thing of every time you stop playing a song or pause it, the entire room is just floating up because you've been looking at the note track coming down for too long. And like, there was music I'd never heard of in that game that was so damn good. It was just an absolute blast. And like, I was worried because I was playing it on hard, and I'm like, I don't know. It's been a long time. I don't know if I can keep up with this. But I think it was a lot easier than even like Guitar Hero 1, because I don't think I beat Guitar Hero 1 on Extreme or anything. But I was kind of worried to be like, I'm going to start on hard, and I'm going to hit a brick wall where these 20-year-old skills aren't going to hold up anymore. It's like, nope, it was able to get through the entire game with like one fail state, but it was just a blast to go through. But
Hell yeah.
yeah, and I'm so happy too that like, it's probably an arbitrary decision 20 years ago, but to like keep the Guitar Hero box, and I put my guitar away every time. I kiss it goodnight, of course.
Still works?
And it
Oh
still
my
works
gosh.
beautifully. But if that thing was just out collecting dust the entire time, I feel like it would have been destroyed in 2008. It's just perfect. Kendra writes in and says, hey, Alana talked a little bit on the last episode about training as a professional boxer. And I'm curious what her favorite and least favorite parts of training as a boxer are.
Can I say, Alana, before you start, I
Go ahead.
thumbs this one up,
Yeah.
both because I'm curious in general, but also, I won't say who, but I had a similar creator to me ask, like, hey, would you be up for doing Creator Clash? And then I watched the video of it, and I was like, no, oh my God, beating the hell out of each other.
Yeah,
so
no,
I'm really
all-
curious.
All out. So, I had to gain weight, like quite a bit, and the person I fought, Mika, had to lose weight. So we had to like meet in the middle. My least favorite part was the amount of food I had to eat. I had to set an alarm to make sure that I was eating, because when you're training for something like that, you also just have to exercise so much. Like I was exercising 3 hours a day, so the food sucked. I would like just eat like a raw chicken breast, you know, like
Yeah.
like I was having just like a raw piece of steak, like regularly, like
Oh.
after eating dinner, that was like my dessert. Like it was just so much goddamn food. That was a really annoying thing to make a part of your life, which like what a privileged first world country problem to have.
Yeah.
But damn, I got sick of food. It was just too much goddamn food. My favorite part actually probably would have been it, not even just training for the match, but boxing in general. I like really highly recommend to women specifically, not that it's great for everyone, but it like really gave me this sort of confidence that I've never had before, in a way that's like you get to work through a lot of things, and it's like incredibly good therapy. Like my boxing coach, particularly because the timing of this happening was like my stepdad was very, very sick, I would say saw me cry probably more than like almost anyone else ever, maybe more than anyone else ever, because you're like boxing while going through stuff, and it's like so cathartic. But you also just like, I didn't know I could do some of the things that I could then learn to do, and I had never tried because I never had to try before. So I think it's like very good for confidence and for just like having this like sense of strength in your own body. Like, could somebody, if they really wanted to, still beat me up on the street? Sure. But like, there are things that I didn't know that I was even capable of, that I like am really grateful in a way that boxing taught me that I can do, or that like I am able to push myself much harder than I ever would have thought. Or that there's this really crazy thing that like I always try to explain: being punched in the face doesn't hurt. I know that sounds nuts, right? Being punched in the nose hurts. Being punched in the cheek doesn't hurt. Like, she got some really good punches on me. When you get that to like to the point where you've like actually had a fight, you've been punched a lot, so like there's a lot of training that goes into that. When I first started being hit, I would cry almost every time. Like, I wasn't sobbing, but I would tear up, and I was like, I don't know why I keep doing this. Why is this happening? And my coach was like, no, this is completely normal. Everybody does this. Like, even the men do this. It's shock. Like, you're shocked. And then once you've been hit in the face enough times, it again doesn't hurt. It's like a pretty solid surface where that's kind of not really a problem. It's just shocking. So then by the time I've had it happen enough into where I actually have my fight, if she got a really good punch on me, my reaction was, damn, that was really good. Which is like a fun progression. Like, you're not like, ow.
Right.
You're like, whoa, that was a really good punch. Damn, that was sick. Like, it's like an appreciation for the way that they're punching you. So it's also kind of nice to learn things you're afraid of in a lot of cases are because you're shocked more so than because it actually is a danger to you. Not that boxing is not dangerous and you can't really hurt yourself, but being punched in the face, I don't care. Like, I don't. It's fine. It's whatever. I would take that over the several punches to an arm. That stuff sucks. If someone's like hooking you in the arm over and over and over again, that hurts. But like punch in the cheek, like, it's fine, dude. It's like not even a big deal. Like, I'll take that any day of the week over many other things.
Are you wearing?
Have to...
Are you wearing like a head guard safety thingy?
No. Fun fact. That is actually worse. They like even got that out of the boxing commission because the head guards, not only do they cause like vision issues, which can make it harder for you to block punches, it also just like creates a rattle. So it technically sort of protects your skin, but they do so little when someone is like hooking you with their whole body weight to actually protect you from concussions in any way. So they were proven to have caused more concussions. So they don't do them in Creator Clash. They don't do them in boxing either.
Oh, wow. It's not the same thing, to be clear, but I started playing Fitness Boxing 3 on the Nintendo Switch. Like,
it's the same thing.
I'm sorry, but it is exactly the same thing.
Every once in a while, it says hit yourself in the face.
You wouldn't care. But yeah, I was so curious about this, and Nintendo sent over a code. It's like, it's Nintendo published this game, right? And it's called Fitness Boxing 3, Your Personal Trainer. And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to get back in shape here. Let's see how this goes. I took a boxing class like 10 years ago, so I think I kind of vaguely remember some of the basic ideas. It's not a great game. It's just like they have this narrator, and I don't know if it's like AI or what's going on with her accent, but she just sounds so distant and removed, and she's trying to motivate you, like, come on, 3 more punches, boom, 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 boom. It's just, it is bizarre. But it was like, I guess if I really want to get in shape, I can shadow box for this. This will be okay. But Sarah, the developer's name is Sin Sophia.
Yeah. Wait, they're supposed to be making my girls mode games.
Sorry, they shifted to boxing because it's the style savvy developers. Yeah, Fashion Dreamer developer. Yep, it's all gone. And they were a weird studio. I looked them up where also in the 90s they made a ton of the wrestling games on Nintendo 64. So they went from that to Style Savvy, Fashion Dreamer, and now Fitness Boxing 3. But, Alana, I know this is exactly your cup of tea, but I pivoted off of this. Is pivot a boxing term? But I pivoted from this into using, I was like, there's got to be a cool boxing game with the MetaQuest 3. Yeah. And so jumping from this turd on the Switch to, I jumped in and got a membership for FitXR.
Great, yeah.
So damn fun and so good. It was just like night and day. Like, oh my God, this is now exciting. I'm looking forward to playing this every night now. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
I do boxing in VR almost every day, and I swap between Supernatural and Les Mills Body Combat, and both of them are a lot of boxing, and it's awesome. I love it. Like, I will be dripping in sweat by the time that I'm done with those. And I was even actually using the Supernatural boxing stuff while I was training for the boxing match, and I got to meet 2 of the coaches in Supernatural. They're basically like, they show up in front of you on video.
Yeah.
And I told them that I won the boxing match. It was my two favorites, like specifically Leanne. I'm like a really big fan of her classes. And I told her when I met her in person, I was like, I won this boxing match. And she was like, are you our first boxing match winner? And I was like, I don't know, but I just want to say thank you. Like, these like are so fun and so motivating. And it was genuinely like they were like kind of part of the team for me for that whole thing, where like there were a lot of days where like I couldn't see my coach because I was still working full time, which don't work full time and train for a boxing match. Don't recommend that. That really was a bad idea. But like she was there, like she got me through so many things I didn't want to do, and it was like legitimately really helpful, and probably one of like the celebrity encounters. I don't know that you would call it
it's
that.
It's like meeting your heroes. It's like, you saved me.
Like,
you saved me.
It fully had a big impact on me. I was like, thank you so much for everything you did for me. And like, she was so sweet. I took a photo with her just to be like, it's my boxing coach in VR. Like, it was really, really cool to meet her.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah. So I was looking it up, and it seemed like people were recommending either Supernatural or FitXR. And I went FitXR, but Supernatural seems like the big...
It's expensive.
And it's just more is it cooler environments they can put you in and stuff?
They have cooler environments, but I think they also have like much more. A lot of them are a lot longer. Like you can do like a 45-minute one, which is like the stuff that I was doing when I was towards the end. The Les Mills body combat though, I think is not a subscription, and I also really highly recommend. I think I have a video about that going up like this week or next week actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Thrill of the Fight is also good, but I don't think as much of a good cardio workout as the other ones. So
Sure.
Yeah, they're like Aloe as well. They have like that's a supernatural like yoga kind of thing where because with the MetaQuest 3 you now can use your hands to control everything.
Right.
Like you don't have to use controllers at all, and it works quite well. So that you'll also do like dumbbell stuff in that. So
weird.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm a very big proponent of working out with MetaQuest. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah. We should mention you are sponsored by them in some way, right?
Yes.
Full disclosure.
But that is like because I love them. Like it happened the other way around, you know?
Sure.
Like I was a shill, and then they were like, wow, you're a big shill for us. Do you want to make more content about it rather than just the random text you talk about it on stream? And I was like, yes, let's do it. So yeah, I have a sponsorship with them for the last like 6 months. And
Nice.
yeah, big fan.
It's been really satisfying to go from like Guitar Hero, and then it's like, oh, this is just kind of Guitar Hero like reflexes and fun, except yeah, I'm sweating by the end and I feel sore the next day. So I'd have to imagine it's great. And like, oh, the combat mode in XR is so fun, and this is so dorky, but it's like, I just love for every punch them having a little power meter. Like
Yeah.
those stupid like punch this thing will give you a number and a bar. It's like
Yeah,
I'm
how
such a
hard you
sucker
punched
for
it.
this. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the Dragon Ball fan of me or what, but like I want that power level for like every single thing I do, and it's so satisfying.
Yeah, they're really great.
Let's see. Leo's Immersion writes in and says, hey, all, no question, just a better quest update. Last year, I pledged to get my personal training certification. And while the year didn't go as planned, I managed to study the 16-week program in only 4 weeks, and I passed the test in December. Congratulations. They say, I also wanted to thank the MinnMax community for inspiring me and tell everyone out there that you can do it. Whatever your goal is, you're capable of so much more. You got this. Thank you, Discord community, for rallying this person. That's sweet. Let's see. Beefcake has a killer question asking, would Tony Hawk be as popular if his name was Toby Hawk?
Yeah, the hawk is the important part, right?
I think so too.
Toby's pretty dopey.
But what if it was Tony Honk?
Tony?
Tony Hank.
Yeah, he can't do it. There's no way. But then again, every once in a while I got to do that gut check and realize one of the most boring names on the planet, Michael Jackson, has become such a powerful, loaded name. But really, if you're looking at it, any name can be exciting.
Yeah.
Luciano Camasetto writes in and said, I recently heard Jason Schreier talking about game budgets, and he said to think of a game's budget as the salaries for everybody employed. This is such a small change, but it makes a big difference from my perspective. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth didn't just blow all that money into the void. That was all money that went towards people and their time.
Yeah, we talk
How
about
were
this on
people
Playwatch
thinking
Listen a
about
lot.
Yeah.
Well, people it's kind of I think Mike said this on our most recent episode, for anyone who's Mike Bithell, game director of Bithell Games, where he was like, you kind of realize the difference between the people who it clicks for them that game development is people's salaries. Then they realize it's the human cost, because I guess otherwise people think that it's technology that is being paid for.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, but games, the cost of video games, what makes them so expensive is literally just the people who are employed to make them for as long as they need to be employed.
You know, I guess it's like it's counterintuitive or surprising if you're thinking about like a movie having a big cost, and it's like, oh, because they rented out this city street for a month, and it's like that's expensive and that's not people. But yeah, it's like you have to rent out people to make a city street in a video game engine, which just means paying their salaries.
Yeah, but then again, I guess if you're renting a city street for Hollywood, then the money would go towards the city. So that's also helping people. I don't know. It is
Well, technically
People being paid
all
is
money
great.
goes to people. Like money
Right.
doesn't exist unless it goes to people.
That's a good argument. Yes, of course.
Great point.
It is weird. It is weird to try and do that math. It can get so scary when some of these games that are so big have been worked on for so long. You just try and think of like, okay, Skull and Bones. How many people are on that team? It's a Ubisoft team. Probably 300. Who knows, right?
Well,
But
then
that-
it's like, are they
that'd be
full
small
time
for
on
them.
that team, or do they like
Yeah,
break
how
off
much
to
of
do
it's
other
outsourced?
projects?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think about like, okay, the new gen design game. Like Fumito Ueda's theoretically been working on that since Last Guardian in 2016. But if
Right.
he's been working on that with a team of like 10 people, then it's like, well, he can go for as long as he wants, as long as the team doesn't get much bigger than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also like one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize externally is that the cost of a new hire, like if somebody leaves a video game studio, not only are you losing their knowledge in general, but you're also losing their knowledge of the exact systems of the workplace. And the 3 months that you have to spend training a new hire on how everything works is very costly because they aren't giving you as much output as the previous person was. It's not like you're just trading someone for someone else, because every game studio, I guess outside of Ubisoft studios, to be honest, operates so differently with such different systems and like such different engines in a lot of cases, like especially if they're proprietary. Like you're basically like losing thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars just because the next person that you've hired can't operate as well as the previous person did because they don't have the knowledge. Like it's costly to lose people and to have to hire new people.
Yeah, for sure. Ricky Maru writes in and said, hey, there's been a lot of talk about live service games with the news of PlayStation canceling Bluepoint's God of War game, a game from Ben Studio, and the Horizon MMO from NCSoft. To play devil's advocate for a second, isn't there a real possibility the God of War game could have been a labor of love from Bluepoint? Something to build on the world, playing through fantastical stories like Ghost of Tsushima Legends, all without being over-monetized? Do live service games or games of service just carry too much baggage now?
I mean, it's maybe a little bit of a false dichotomy, because it's like, I would never say that any game was made without passion behind it. Like I don't, the most money-grabbingest game, unless it's made, totally by AI, still had like people behind it who were like, I want to do a good job and make art. I think there are two things that makes the kind of recent live service announcements hard to view in like a, oh no, what a loss of the art way. One is that the games themselves just seem so decided in a boardroom. Just kind of Sony being like, what is our biggest game? How can we make another game like that? Nothing about the God of War formula seems like it would lend itself to a live service game, though, that could be proven wrong. And the other thing is just like, as Alana said, these games exist to extract money out of you forever. And to me, that makes them feel less like artistically meaningful objects than a game that's not designed to extract money out of you forever. And so, like, even if the people behind them were really passionate, which I'm sure they were, at least at some point in the process, for me, it's just like, it's hard to get excited about a game that like is just designed to keep you paying, because that's literally how the like budget is calculated for it. It's just like, I guess what I'm saying is I just don't respect live service games as a medium, but like I really, it's really hard for me to get excited about that sort of thing.
What about something like Helldivers 2? Not exactly a direct comparison. It's like a chalk to cheese situation, but like, do you see that as, well, there's no artistic value here because it's ideally trying to keep me playing this?
I love Helldivers 2, but like, I guess it's like, I guess what I come back to is like, I am playing a game from 2005 right now, and I can play it exactly the same way that I could in 2005. And all of these games, like, they will just cease to exist as soon as they become unprofitable. And so it just makes them feel less like, art that's being created intentionally. And I would
it feels
include
like more blatant
Helldivers
capitalism.
in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not hiding it as well. Like, I think the thing is, with some small exceptions, every game, no matter what it is made by a bunch of people who really want to make something great. And if they've worked on something for years and then it gets pulled out from underneath them, regardless of what the game is, I think that really sucks. Like, that is a huge bummer for all of those people who have ideas they're excited about that they've been making with other creative people, and that being rug pulled, especially if they were told to make that type of game because of corporate, and then it's taken away from them. It just sucks. They're not all just going to be lifeless. Like, people really are going to do the best with what they have. I'm kind of glad that the live service stuff trend is kind of going away, though. I thought it would be here to stay for longer. I thought that they would keep trying based on all the data that we have, but I hope that it goes away. I just really hope it doesn't get replaced in the West by Gacha, which I think is pretty likely.
Yeah, that's what's happening. I think it's like
I hate Gacha.
Don't talk to Sarah about Infinity Nikki. It's our main thing.
I think what's, again, one of the reasons that I feel like I'm kind of like celebrating the cancellation is just like it feels like a worse position for developers to have to be in. And so like the ideal would be they no longer make a live service game. They make a game that's not like extractive, that they can be passionate about, and doesn't have the plug pulled on it after 6 months of underperformance.
Sure.
But realistically, what might happen is their project gets kicked out and then they leave the game industry, which sucks.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see this wave of cancellations coming at like the same time as, hey, you know what game is number one? Marvel Rivals. And so I still feel like no matter what, there's always going to be kind of the gold coin dangling in front of people. Like, yeah, but what if you could become that Marvel Rivals? Wouldn't that be the best thing ever? And it's like, well, yeah, in theory. But there can only be one. Or there can only be, what, 8? What's the real number?
Yeah, but they're all already made.
Right, yeah. Let's see. I bought my Tesla before I knew Elon was a fascist, wrote in. They say, hey, MinnMax, since Alana probably isn't familiar with the MinnMax backlog of content, I thought we could give her a quiz. In good faith, though, Alana, we're not expecting you to be a MinnMax expert. That would be cruel and unusual punishment. Every MinnMax fan has been tortured. So here's a quiz called New Show Plus or New Show Bust. I will give you a short description of a video idea, and you can guess if it was an actual episode of the hit weekly series New Show Plus, where we let $10 supporters vote every week for which new show we create or continue.
Yeah.
Okay, was this or was this not a New Show Plus episode? Watch Ben and Leo walk.
That has to be bust. But if you're asking me, it feels like it can't be. There's no way that was a show. That can't be.
Let me send you a link to Walking Simulator, Alana, where Leo and I went for a lovely walk.
Oh my god.
And they got some Dairy Queen.
Yeah.
And this was picked over 3 other options.
Yeah, and
Wow.
not only that, Alana, just for the strength of the MinnMax community, we did that and we said, this is dumb. I don't know if this should even air, but unfortunately it was live streamed. But then for the MinnMax Game Jam, somebody made a walking simulator based on us doing a parody of a walking simulator.
So they did a walking simulator.
That was exactly what it was called. Yep. Okay,
Oh my
was
God.
this a show or not? This is a
She's
fun...
gonna think that we're not actually a gaming outlet anymore.
Yeah,
She's
some
gonna,
days
she's
I
gonna
question.
know that we're just a bunch of weirdos.
Yeah. The show was Look at Ben's Clothes.
Look at Ben's. Look, at this point, I'm gonna say, yeah, you did a closet tour.
Correct. Sarah fixed my wardrobe. That's why
They
I'm
were bad.
wearing a
They
cool
were
shirt
really
now.
bad.
How dare you, Sarah? I don't say that about your
I mean,
clothes.
Send the footage.
Oh, you did like a what is it, like Beauty and the Geek type of thing? Like I'm forgetting the
We
name
did
of
like
the...
a dress to impress, but nobody was
Yeah.
impressed.
Okay, watch Ben practice Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on his cabinet.
I'm gonna say no because that seems like actually video games.
You're
Yeah.
getting it. You're getting it.
Yeah, we pitched it and people said not interested.
Go walk, please.
What about a show called Fork Eat?
No.
Correct. What about a show called Knife Eat?
Yes.
Correct. And it was a hit show. Canceled after 1. Sorry, it did not
I'm
have
hanging
long
my
for this
head
world.
in shame.
Yeah.
What was Knife Eat?
It was. What do you think it was?
Did you just eat stuff but like from a knife?
It's a long story. Yeah, the idea was when Game Informer had the layoffs in 2019 and all of us were really bummed out in the office, we filled up our time instead of working because no one had the morale to work, where we just said, what's the dumbest thing we could do right now? How could we waste GameStop's money and time in the biggest way? And I think somebody, probably Ben Reeves, pitched the idea of a show just called Knife Eat, where it's just you try and eat different food, but you can only use a knife. So like, can you eat nachos with only a knife? Like that.
Oh, could you?
Well, tune into Knife Eat. We'll send you a link, Alana.
Well,
I
now
don't
I'm
know.
curious.
It's a good question. It got too dangerous. We had to cancel it. Okay, create a children's book.
I'm gonna say no because I think that's conceptually too interesting.
I'm afraid we did it. Kelsey Lowen drew it was Jeff Keighley with dinosaurs or something, I believe.
Wasn't it like
Amazing.
Leo goes to the Summer Game Fest or
Oh
something?
yeah,
or
Leo
Leo
goes to
or
E3.
something?
Yeah,
Little Leo.
Little
Balls.
Leo. That's right. It was really good. We never printed it out though. We meant to. But rate donuts from Minneapolis.
Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, people didn't vote for it. It was called Soft Ones, and people did not vote for it, which was really alarming.
You
Devastating.
named it soft.
Yeah, maybe shouldn't have called it soft ones.
Yeah, you know what? It's always the branding that'll get you. Look at houses on Zillow.
Oh, yes, that's great content.
Yep.
Timeless content.
It was great. We should put it in the poll next week, actually. Correct. Thank you, Tesla buyer, for writing in with that.
That's
okay.
amazing.
Question of the week. What do y'all like? A lot of good ones this week. We had.
I think that last one was very fun because that person had to put a lot of effort in.
It's true. They had to write out fork eat.
Yeah.
That is true. I like the one about boxing. That was illuminating. The most random game we ever played. Should bosses hurt you if they touch you? Game codes. That was interesting. Balancing feedback. What do y'all like, Sarah and Jacob?
They're all great questions.
All great questions.
I like the boxing one because Alana talked about getting in shape for a boxing match, and then Ben said he's been playing a Switch game.
Yeah, but
He was right to do so.
Yeah.
It counts.
Playing that game hurt me more than getting punched in the face, though, apparently. So, you cool with that, Sarah?
Yeah.
Great. Kendra, congratulations. You just won question of the week, and you won the vinyl soundtrack to Kentucky Route Zero. Now it's time for something that we call Get a Load of This. Jacob, you want to kick it off?
Get a load of this.
Oh, wow.
I brought it up with Ben earlier this week and said maybe I'll get this out of the way and not do it as my get a load of this, but I'm still doing it. David Ehrlich's The 25 Best Films of 2024.
So good.
This is not a list of 25 good movies that came out in 2024. It is the best editing you can see in a video all year.
100%.
This is it's a 25-minute long music video essentially of nearly all of the films of 2024, cut and scored together in the most genius ways that makes you see connections between movies that seem like they have absolutely nothing to do with each other. The Nosferatu section is scored with My Heart Will Go On,
and it works.
It's like that is what that movie's about.
Wow.
It's like truly, this was my get a load of this last year when it came out, and probably the year before as well. Like, I find it genuinely inspiring as a video editor. Like, I've watched this twice. I'll probably watch it like 5 more times.
Links below. Alana, 100% you will love this. Check it out. What's it called one more time, Jacob?
It's the 25 best films of 2024, a video countdown by David Ehrlich.
Love it.
Sweet.
Hey, get a load of this, everybody. This always happens where I get obsessed with a new podcast, then all of my fun tidbits are coming from them. But the Into the Aether podcast, which is a very good podcast, they were talking recently about a kart racing game on the Game Boy Advance that I forgot exists, but it's called Konami Crazy Racers, where it's like a Mario Kart clone, but it's just all Konami characters. And they have Gray Fox from Metal Gear in there. But more importantly, in this kart racer on the Game Boy Advance, they have a version of the Metal Gear Solid 1 theme, or I guess just kind of music. So here's Crazy Kart Racers. All right, it's the best. Game Boy Advance was cool, everybody.
That's great.
Yeah, links below if you want to check out all this fun stuff. Alana, you got one this week?
Yeah, get a load of this presentation called "The State of Video Gaming in 2025." It's written by Matthew Ball on the website MatthewBall.co, and we speak about it a lot on this week's Play Watch Listen, which is the game dev podcast that I do. It is quite long, 224 pages, but it's all slideshow. But I really highly recommend it to anybody who's into the games industry in like a statistical point of view. Like, it is the most comprehensive data analysis that I have seen of what's happened over the past several years of gaming, and like what is happening with the current market and the different spending in comparisons to other industries as well. Like, I just very, very highly recommend it to anybody who, you know, is interested in the inner workings of the games industry. So I'll send a link to you as well.
Yeah,
but
please do.
yeah, if you go to MatthewBall.co/all/state of video gaming 2025, you'll find it. The whole thing is so interesting and so easy to get through, and it talks about like the lasting impacts of COVID and what they've had on the games industry, and like part of stuff that we talked about earlier today, like black hole games is what they refer to the live service games as, and how like there are several different indicators of things that are really hurting the games industry right now. Like growth in foreign developers is really hurting the North American market, stagnant console install bases for the first time in a long time, and it touches on the rise of social video, which I think is a really interesting one. Like I said earlier, of like how the games industry is actually competing with TikTok. It's not just competing with itself anymore. So yeah, super interesting, tons of detail, well sourced. Like, just really highly recommend giving it a read.
Cool. Sarah, I know you were a last second pivot for jumping on the podcast today after somebody had to drop out, but you got one?
Luckily, I have this one.
Hell yeah.
In the bag. Get a load of this. There is a game called Love in Deep Space, which I would never play because it's a disgusting free-to-play game with gacha mechanics, and it's a visual novel. I guess I would call it like a dating game, where it's just like there's a bunch of guys. It's disgusting. Would never play it. But recently, they surpassed 50 million players, and they're top of the App Store, beating out Genshin Impact, Zenless Zone Zero, all those other games, top of the App Store. But I would never play it.
You're a classy lady.
Never have I ever. But recently, they had their 3.0 update, and they added sort of like an event thing, so you can tell the guys like, hey, I have this big event coming up, can you like remember it for me? And you can kind of like do a schedule with them. But they also have a period tracker.
Hello?
Where you can tell your boyfriend, husband, all of your boyfriend husbands when the last time you had your period was. And you can keep giving them this information, and they will remind you when your next period's coming. They will predict it, and they will tell you. And then they will commiserate with you during your period. They'll be extra nice to you. They'll be like, are you feeling okay? Like, are you okay? Like, you should eat some, make sure to get plenty of rest and, like, drink plenty of water and, like, treat yourself. So the future is here.
Oh, my God.
And, yeah, like I said, I would never use it.
I understand.
And I would never play it.
Understand. It's just good to know it's out there. I understand in an abstract kind of way. Wow. Hey, we're here, everybody. Hey, get a load of this from the community in the Discord channel. People share good links all day, every day. It's a great little news feed for y'all. Infinity Emily shared this story where the creator of Balatro just sent out like, hey, we sold 5 million copies of Balatro. And they say, the last few weeks have been pretty wild. To everyone who picked up Balatro after seeing it at the Game Awards, we hope you're having an amazing time with it. Also, if this is your first time picking up an indie title, try to make it a habit. There's some amazing stuff out there. I thought even like during the Game Awards, like when they won, right? Like in the acceptance speech, and Local Thonk didn't go up there, but also he shouted out some other game. I'm trying to remember what it was. But I thought they've done a good job of trying to just kind of, pass this along to try and highlight other indie devs. They've got all
the custom cards. It's like there's like 1,000 times resist card images in Balatro and like so many others.
That's so Arco. That's right. They shouted out Arco up there. That was so cool. And we can't do the math this way, but it is fascinating to think about Balatro, solo developer, selling 5 million copies. If Steam takes 30% of that, every store takes 30% of that. That still leaves them with $52,500,000 from the sale. And again, I'm sure a chunk of that is going to other stuff, but that is such a ridiculous win for one-person development. Jesus.
Incredible. Also, just so well deserved.
Oh yeah, yep, absolutely. All right, that is it for this episode of the MinnMax Show. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Thanks for subscribing to MinnMax's YouTube channel, sharing this with a friend, and as we've mentioned before, you could watch hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of MinnMax videos, and it would not equal the help that we get from that compared to just 1 month on Patreon. 1 month on Patreon at that $2 tier is the equivalent of you watching MinnMax videos for the next 8 years religiously. Like, it helps so much more. So we greatly appreciate that. If you want to jump in at that $2 tier, that'd be great. At the $5 tier, you unlock the bonus podcast feed, where we're going to have the podcast version of the Deepest Dive on Onimusha Warlords. We're collecting your thoughts this Friday on Patreon for that, and that'll be going up early next week for that first half of the game discussion. It's a whole game club there. Also, that podcast feed has the Deepest Dive on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The PC version is out now. Seems to be great. Very cool. If you want to play along with our whole game club, I'd recommend it. We had a 23-hour discussion about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and it's all in that podcast feed. So if you're at the $5 tier, unlock that and hopefully enjoy that companion piece to your time playing through what I'd argue is the best game of 2024. Also, New Show Plus, everybody. This week, Alana came in with a haymaker, as is her wont, by saying, hey, let's just do New Show Plus, and it's all about debating the greatest games of all time. And the community gets to suggest every game on that list, and when we rank it accordingly. And so that is up on our YouTube channel, but it is also, the podcast version of that is in that bonus podcast feed as well. It's just overflowing. So thanks to Alana for tapping us on the shoulder politely and saying, why aren't you guys doing the obvious thing? The obvious great content you could be doing right now. I was like, oh yeah, correct. Also, yeah, if you're a fan of MinnMax interviews, we have a lot coming up. I know it's been a little while. I guess Indiana Jones was the last one, but we have 4 interviews that are going to be happening very soon. So there's going to be a flood coming for you with hopefully a lot of insight about the game industry. And those will also be in that bonus podcast feed. So support us at the $5 tier to unlock that. We greatly appreciate it. All right, that is it, everybody. Thanks so much. Until next week, be good, have fun, let's go.